Let's talk about the male light versus the female void, also known as void, as the squiddos call it these
That's
days.
it's not a coincidence. It matches up because it's an eternal truth.
Yes.
Well, according to Dave Sim's religion/philosophy that only he believes in, the evil female demiurge may have unconsciously placed that information into the minds of billions of men.
I think I was just getting to that part of the comic because just today, we've been.
It's honestly not a big part of the comic. It's like it's like 2 chapters out of 300.
Yeah, which is
Have you gotten to the end?
Especially bizarre.
No, I got to 260.
Actually, I read 299 and 300 like a month ago, but today I read up to 201. Technically, I'm on 202 right now, but I mean, we have a very bizarre history. The first time I ever heard of Dave Sim or Cerebus was me and my brother got the internet late 90s. Our first ever, our own computer, Evergreen 133 megahertz. We thought that was as good as a Pentium. It wasn't.
It said it was.
No, it just said it was
100 or whatever.
It said
it's
it was.
Like, this is as good as a Celeron 80.
No, well, yeah, it was as good as a Celeron 80, but that means it wasn't even as good as a Pentium 90 because it couldn't run Quake 2. And I held that against Quake 2, rightfully so, because to be honest, Quake 2 isn't that good a game. But I remember it was our computer though, and we had an internet connection, our own wonderful dial-up, and one of the first pages that we saw, there was like TV Hole, and Yahoo would just recommend things.
It's a very basic HTML page too. It's just like text on like a plain background.
It's still up, and it's called the Dave Sim Misogyny page, and we found it, and it was like forbidden knowledge because
especially with mom, especially as a child of a single mother,
yes.
You're not allowed to think these things.
But yeah, at that time, like late 90s, you couldn't hear this stuff on TV anymore, really ever. Like, if they had it on TV, it would be on, like, Oprah as somebody for the audience to yell at angrily.
This would have been, like, 2 years before Craig Kilborn got fired from The Daily Show for joking about a woman.
Yeah.
Specifically, a Jewish woman.
Yes. But we read it, and it's the Dave Sim Misogyny page. In fact, I might throw the AI reading of it. I'm going to throw that into this video somewhere, but maybe right here.
Dave Sim is notorious as the patron saint of independent comics publishers, having written, illustrated, and published Cerebus on a monthly basis since the late 70s. He plans to continue doing so until issue number 300. Update, series now completed. For several years, Sim used Cerebus to explore issues concerning women. Sim's self-proclaimed misogyny to, quote, "It wouldn't be that big a stretch to categorize my writing as hate literature against women in this fascistic feminist country," reached a crescendo in issue number 186, in which Sim dropped his fictional shell entirely and spoke in the first person. Sim described what he sees as the archetypal male-female relationship, in which the female void devours the male light. But let's hear Dave Sim speaking for himself. Quotations. "Emotion, whatever the female void would have you believe, is not a more exalted state than is thought. In point of fact, I think emotion is animalistic, serpent brain stuff. Animals do not think, but I am reasonably certain that they have emotions. Eating this makes me happy. When my fur is all wet and I am cold, it makes me sad. Ooh, puppies! It makes me excited to chase the ball. Reason, as any husband can tell you, doesn't stand a chance in an argument with emotion. This was the fundamental reason, I believe, that women were denied the vote for so long. Behind this lies the greater void, the omnivorous engine which drives every institutionalized waste of human time and energy, which drives, in point of fact, our entire degraded society, the wife and kids. In one of those Pora studies for which the emotional female void is notorious, it was pointed out that after a divorce, the average male standard of living rises, the average female standard of living drops. I think the explanation is that the excision of a 5 to 6 foot leech from the surface of a human body is going to have more of its own blood in its own veins. Unless the leech finds another body, it is going to go hungry. In labouring to fill the insatiable void, need for material possessions at home, his time and his energy and his spirit disappear into the vaginal bottom line of the workplace. The male light and the female void, seminal energy and omnivorous parasite. If you look at her and see anything besides emptiness, fear and emotional hunger, you are looking at the parts of yourself which have been consumed to that point. It wouldn't be that big a stretch to categorize my writing as hate literature against women in this fascistic feminist country.
But the page itself has a drawing from not only from Cerebus, but Cerebus, but from that specific issue. It was like 186. It came out, I think, like 93 or 94, and I guess it caused quite the stir in the comic scene, the indie comic scene, all that stuff. But I remember reading that page and not having any. I didn't know what Cerebus was. I didn't know who Dave Sim was. I just know that Dave Sim was some guy who said this misogynist stuff about the male light being swallowed up by the female void, and I thought how awesome it is just to say that. Even if you didn't mean it, if it was a joke, if it was ironic, if it was completely dead fucking serious, I thought how awesome that I even get to read this. Because the
internet is really, really great.
But if you saw this in a movie, it would be by a guy who was about to get punched by a woman. There would be no way you would ever hear any of this kind of stuff from a character in any way unless they had some kind of very immediate comeuppance to them. And that was my introduction to Cerberus.
Yes, this comic started as a spelling error.
Yes. And you know what? That's kind of a good thing because that makes it easier to search for and find.
Here's why that's a good thing.
The internet didn't exist back in the 70s, or maybe as a very basic ARPANET shit, but it ended up being very useful.
The
chat boards are what do they call
the BBSs?
BBS,
but also the Dewey Decimal System, which you
Dewey Decimal System.
You should know that.
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Yeah, lest you get chopped in half by Conan the Librarian, of course. But,
from the wonderful movie UHF.
One of the greatest works of art. What an embarrassment of riches that 1980, the summer of 1989.
He nearly gave up his career because the movie didn't do well in theaters.
Up against Batman.
Raiders of the Lost, or not Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It was Last Crusade. Last Crusade.
No. Yeah, Last Crusade, that was it. Yeah, 1989.
Ghostbusters 2. And
which is not even the favorite Ghostbusters movie, and still that was a huge movie.
I mean, it was highly anticipated, certainly, but just those three movies alone, UHF was up against. I think there was like another movie or two that came out within the few weeks period of those that were even bigger. But yeah, and UHF, Cerebus, clearly very related because both of them really go off the rails in certain ways. But I remember like early 2010s, I finally was like, you know what? If I'm going to write comics at least, with any seriousness, I should go to the comic store. And I went up there And I had been hearing more about Cerebus at that time. So any issue of Cerebus I had found, I would buy up. And most of the ones that were in the dollar bins were, of course, around like 150, 160.
So the
170.
utterly bonkers, out of context nonsense.
Yeah, the first one I saw, the first one I bought, the first Cerebus comic I ever bought was in like 2011 or so. And it was Cerebus standing on a floating block in space flying past Jupiter, and I'm like, what the fuck is this piece of shit?
What the fuck is going on here?
And I kind of wanted to know, but also is like, am I going to read like the previous 180 things? And eventually, actually, I think like around 2013, 14, the Cerebus comics started going up on Comixology, which is now just Amazon and Amazon Kindle.
Amazon.
Yes. But they all started going up, and everyone was like, well, High Society is like the peak of Cerebus. And I think it was either free or $1 for that first issue of High Society. I bought it and I read it and I was like, okay, I get why this is seen as like a classic of indie comics, because it's very smartly written, it's funny, and all the elements of what makes Cerebus good is right there in that one issue, which is, I put it in the notes, I think is 27 or something like that.
I think the first 25 issues are the first volume, and then 26 is
yeah, 20
High Society.
Issue 26 is the beginning of High Society. Yeah, but you know what? Here's what we'll do is we'll start with the beginning of Cerebus. I did last year, 2025, I started reading. We decided to make a real go of it. And I didn't expect my brother to read it, but my brother, you're up to like what, 260 or something?
Yeah, 260 or maybe a little later than that.
So you're almost done with the whole thing. And I might finish, I probably, since I'm at 201 or 202, I could easily finish the whole thing. The only thing is, I kind of know I'm in for I know I'm in for a disappointment, but to be honest, the end of 200 is kind of the perfect place for the story to technically be finished. But we'll get into
that. So should I talk about my introduction?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So first of all, my name is No You Shut the Fuck Up Dad from shitposter.world.
The wonderful shitposter. Home to movie nights, and now House Monday, of course.
So when I was a kid, this was early 90s, like 92 or so, my older brother introduced me to comics, both Western and Eastern. So I got into manga and American comics at the same time, and one of them was Cerebus. So I read right from issue 1, the beginning of the first volume, and I was hooked.
It's a stronger start than a lot of people give it credit for.
Yeah, even Dave Sim himself says it was crude and shitty, but
yeah. Well,
no, there's quite a lot of advanced art techniques he uses, even on the early issues.
Yeah, that's true. The art style looks a little like kind of loose and sloppy, but
it's weird. Yeah, the character of Cerebus himself, that art style for him is very cartoony. It's very like Disney or Looney Tunes.
Yeah, intentionally too, that you can tell. But the character is still pretty solid. In fact, he kind of is always the same character, even way into the schizo.
Well, he does a good job of like fitting the character into the regular art style of like actual humans,
which is part of the joke of the comic overall too. Which is, I think he kind of got that from Howard the Duck, because that was kind of the gag of Howard the Duck too.
And of course, you'll see a lot of inspirations. Like a bunch of Marvel characters just show up literally. Yeah. Moon Knight shows up, and then fucking the Punisher, and
it's the Roach guy basically is a parody of all of them combined, essentially. To the point where
he even does a Sandman parody later.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, that was around 160 or maybe 150.
Well, it's like one.
Now it's kind of a blur. Naturally, all of that. Like 150
no,
to 200
I
is
read
kind of a
them
blur
once.
now.
Yeah, that's the thing is I read all this stuff at least once, and also I think I need to explain that I skipped a bunch of them.
Yeah, well, not the books itself, but half of the
No,
books, like after issue maybe 50, the next, well, the next all of them, half of the book is the comic, and the other half is giant letters sections and essays from Dave Sim or all sorts of other people about all sorts of topics,
yeah,
about the
it's like a
comic or
who's
not.
who of indies, the indies of that era.
Yeah, it became like a virtual convention where
ElfQuest shows up.
other people's comics start showing up at the end, like Scott McCloud and who's the guy who did Bone?
Jeff Smith.
Yeah, Jeff
Oh, yeah.
Smith. They do comics at the end of some of these issues that
He's
just
providing
show up.
a bunch of praise for Bone, and yeah, it's kind of what you're
Well, they were
supposed to
friends.
do if you're going to be an indie comic creator. Is here is some page. He would show like 5 or 10 pages of just somebody else's comic.
Yeah, he would promote. He would actually use his book to ideally try and get other people's comics launched.
And they didn't even
into
have
the
to
book.
dox anyone.
Yeah.
He didn't even make them do doxing or gay ops.
Yeah, or fucking dark money funded by Mormons in Israel and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he could have. He just apparently didn't. If he,
That's
No,
if he-
not- I
chose
would
to
say.
he chose to reject mainstream offers
Yeah, you
from
can-
the big two companies
you
all
can-
the time.
That's right.
yeah, you can very much see that in like
In
if
fact,
you
yeah, that's
just
so
skimming
the letters
those
section,
essays.
or not the letters section, but the notes from the president or whatever it is, the thing that he usually puts up front.
Yeah, he bitches about the comic book industry all the time,
Mm-hmm.
justifiably so.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
Cerebus 104, note from the president. We have reached a critical juncture in the evolution of the direct sales market. More publishers continue to start up even as the casualty figures climb. Established companies, anyone who has lasted a year or more, continue to expand and contract simultaneously, replacing poor-selling titles as fast as they can be canceled, spinning off good-selling titles as if they were breeding rabbits. The distributors, who short months ago were castigating me for not allowing them to distribute high society, heave a collective sigh of relief whenever they are not solicited for today's new hot title, grateful for any relief provided their overtaxed cash reserves. Their and the retailers' cash flow has become a central issue in our incestuous Wii marketplace. The success I have had with selling high society, church and state, and now Cerebus indicates that the money exists to support independent creativity at the consumer level. The competition between companies vying for their fair share of the fan buck has created a bottleneck at the distributor level, and the misbegotten impression that we have fallen on hard times. Tain't so, kids. What it has proved is that the trickle-up theory doesn't work. The amount that has to be spent by each fan in each store to maintain even a status quo at the publishing level increases with each shipping week. What must be faced by the distributors is that the dream of kings, Phil Suling and Hal Schuster circa 1979 when ElfQuest and Cerebus were prizes in a chess game, pawed over by these reprehensible gentlemen who sought each other's demise through exclusive distribution rights to titles, has died, but more to the point, the dream of princes has proved an equal, if not greater, folly. In demanding that they be given all of a company's product, an ignominious term to which offensiveness they seem blithely ignorant, they have set themselves up for the next bow and turn of our farcical dance, the high-priced reprint collection. If they would encourage creative people to follow my own example and to distribute these collections by direct mail, ensuring in the process the financial security of these creators and their creations, a continuing supply of current material, an easing of their own financial burden, and a lower-priced collection/package for the fan, much of the madness which lies ahead might be avoided. But they have learned nothing from the black-and-white implosion. Having been burned, some damaged irreparably at the $2 table, they have gathered their remaining grub stake and now endeavor to make a killing at the $25 table. Such monumental and pointlessly self-destructive foolishness would be funny were it not so dangerous. Dave Sim, November 1987.
No, he has downright prophetic calls. That's one of
Yes.
the things. For instance, this would be a very long cutaway, but we did videos about this before a number of years ago where we just read off Cerebus, I think, Big Picture one. It wasn't 191, was it, or something?
I don't remember the number.
I think it was like 191. It's the one
Yeah,
where he talks
It's
about
191.
yeah, he talks about video games and the mindless mayhem they provide being better than the mindless mayhem that comics could provide.
That's really depressing now to think that video games are also doing a better job telling stories
Yeah,
than
now.
comics.
Yeah.
Cerebus number 191, February 1995. Dave Sim, The Big Picture. For a long time, the direct market was supported by greed. A majority of sales was to speculators who were in the market to turn a profit on inflated back-issue prices. For a time, back-issue prices in the price guides reflected genuine dollar value. You would get 50% of the stated value selling your comics to a dealer. This is pretty standard in collector markets everywhere, and only on the books that the dealer could turn around in pretty short order. The standard payment for low-demand books was, and is, a nickel each. A lot of the speculators were rich on paper and found when they went to sell their books that their $5,000 collection only netted them $400 or $500. When Wizard appeared on the scene, a short market evolved. Specific comic books, only 2 or 3 months old, went up in value to $10 or $15. This worked for a while. Now a lot of books valued at $15 in Wizard are being dumped at one-day conventions for 50 cents. These are still books that a dealer will give you 50% of a price guide for, but they are very much in the minority. There was a great sigh of relief all the way around as the speculator market collapsed in on itself. What was ignored by almost everyone was that this made the comic book market much, much smaller than it was widely perceived to be. The retail community was unanimous in its verdict and its recommendation to its customer base. Just buy comic books that you like and enjoy reading. Speculation is a dead end. Greed and speculation became a very marginal part of the marketplace. What the retail community didn't take into account was that comic books were not very enjoyable to read, for the most part. By any measure, a vast majority of the retailer's stock could be classed as unreadable, their own recommendation working against them. They were, and for the most part are, misinterpreting what it is that they are selling and to whom. Most retailers have not read a Marvel comic in 5 years, with the exception of Marvels and a handful of others. Superhero comics have changed out from under them, distilled to their very essence of adolescent male power fantasies. Even that term exalts the material above its actual nature. What retailers are selling is mindless mayhem. What they fail to see, for the most part, is that video games are becoming a good deal more sophisticated. For $3, a 12-year-old kid can participate in mindless mayhem, beating shit out of the bad guy. Traditionally, that same 12-year-old would have entered the comic book marketplace. Now, with video games, TV animation, and toys cluing in to just how easy it is to tap into that urge towards mindless mayhem, colorful costumes with lots of armor and spikes and big guns and muscles, comic books have unbeatable competition. Toys, animation, and video games have one thing in common: they move. Comic books do not. Let's call it sadism, and let's call it Phase 2. Phase 1, greed doesn't sell comic books. Phase 2, sadism doesn't sell comic books. That leaves us with the retailer's own recommendation: just buy comic books that you like and enjoy reading. Their customers have taken this very much to heart. A customer doesn't go into a comic book store in search of his favorite title anymore. Whatever his favorite title is, it has probably undergone 3 or 4 massive transformations in the last year. Once you change the basic underpinnings of mindless mayhem, this is what the costume looks like, this is the bad guy, these are the friends, this is the conflict, you are selling a new commodity. The average 12 to 14-year-old customer scans the racks and picks a few things that look cool. For the most part, they don't find anything that they enjoy reading for any length of time, so the next time they pick something else. Every week there is another selection of cool covers to pick from. A comic book that doesn't sell out in a week doesn't sell out at all. With a toy, with TV animation, with video games, the mindless mayhem is different every time out, familiar enough to maintain interest and brand loyalty, but different enough to keep them from coming back for more. While Phase 1 was welcomed by every level of the direct market, Phase 2 is being ignored. The evidence is right in front of the retailers' noses. Those comic books that are genuinely interesting and worth reading and which have a loyal customer base are holding their own, moving up slowly in circulation or declining in sales at a slower rate than the rest of the comic books. Those that are composed of mindless mayhem are on a very rapid decline. Friends, retailers, countrymen. My assessment comes down to this. If you have a large and stable audience composed in large measure of greed and sadism devotees, you need a large store, or many large stores, to service that demand. Once you eliminate greed and are unable to compete for the sadism audience, you are left with a very small core audience/customer base. If your retail philosophy, endlessly drummed into your customers week after week and month after month, year after year, is just buy the comic books you enjoy reading, and 70 to 80% of the comic books you display every week are virtually unreadable, abruptly changing course and direction and structure and supporting cast and look and feel every 6 months, then you are selling your customers on something other than what you're selling, aren't you? The mindless mayhem that you're selling has to be sold structurally. With a video game, TV animation, or an action figure, it's very simple. This guy is the good guy. This guy is the bad guy. They have a big fight. In order to compete, you would have to know the plot of every mindless mayhem comic book that you sell. Every week you would have to lay the groundwork for getting your customers excited about the conflicts to come. When Thor joins the Godwheel title, whom is he going to fight? What are they going to fight about? You have to know the ins and outs of every superhero title that you sell. You have to know 2 or 3 months ahead of time what the big fight is going to be. Well, you can't, can you? Let's face it, the editors don't even know who is going to fight whom and what they are going to fight about. Right now, as we speak, hundreds of thousands of dollars are being wagered by the retail community that what we are doing as a marketplace is waiting for the next big company to come along, a company that will feature a handful of hot titles and instantaneous fan-favorite characters written and drawn by fan-favorite writers and artists. Every single issue of every single title will have the audience on the edge of its seats waiting to see what happens next. Hordes of 12-year-olds will have their faces pressed against the glass a half hour before opening time on New Comics Day, vibrating with the hope that the new issues of whatever have come in. Let me mention parenthetically that this is what you had with Image. Your resentment of these flashy upstarts was what compelled you to make Just Buy Comics You Enjoy Reading a universal recommendation. I was talking to a retailer a couple of weeks back on New Comics Day. His shipment arrived and he signed off with a time to face the hordes. Hordes? I asked provocatively. Well, he allowed, maybe one horde. No hordes, no horde. Time to face the music. When a band finds that they have lost their audience with a New Direction second or third album, they start playing smaller venues. They don't book Shea Stadium, defiantly asserting that the ticket merchants are wrong. There are far more than 2,000 people clamoring for tickets to see them. If it takes 3 weeks to sell 2,000 tickets, you cancel the tour and rebook in venues where 2,000 people will look like a crowd. It is accepted for the most part that there are too many comic book stores for the size of the market we are left with, now that greed and sadism aren't as bankable as they once were. Most stores that are starting out are attempting to compete by opening in proximity to established stores and siphoning off business. The 18-year-old and up market is larger than it's ever been. The 12 to 14-year-old market is smaller than it's ever been. There is no miracle company coming to save the 12 to 14-year-old market. Comic books don't move, video games do. Comic books don't move, TV animation does. Comic books don't move, action figures do. The demand for readable, interesting comic books is solid, but it is very small. It is getting larger slowly. I was talking to another retailer who was making an observation that is nearly universal: how difficult it has become to sell new comic books even to comic book fans. He sees a fan of Cerebus in his store. He shows him another title. Here, I think you'll like this. The fan doesn't want to buy it. The only thing this retailer, and most retailers, have found that works is to let the fan take the book home and read it. If he doesn't want the book and he brings it back in the same condition, the retailer won't charge him for it. Invariably, the fan comes back and says, "Wow, that was really good. Here's the money. I want to subscribe to the future issues in my pull file." The success rate for this approach at the retail level is 90% or better. 90%. This approach works better than a signing, better than a discount coupon, better than a flyer, better than a full-page ad in a comics publication. Retailers know which customer is likely to enjoy which title. I call it the Elvis Presley syndrome. When Elvis first went into Sun Records and wanted to record some songs, the receptionist asked him whom he sounded like. "I don't sound like nobody." That's the problem that quality comic books face in the market. We don't sound like nobody. Terry Moore don't sound like nobody. Jeff Smith don't sound like nobody. The average comics fan and or retailer would disagree with that. Terry Moore sounds like Dave Stevens. Jeff Smith sounds like Walt Kelly. By that reasoning, Elvis Presley sounds like Bing Crosby. Elvis don't sound like nobody. Terry don't sound like nobody. Jeff don't sound like nobody. In Elvis's case, it was a matter of getting copies of his singles to radio stations, mostly colored radio stations, and letting the record prove its point. Elvis don't sound like nobody. I gotta get me that record. That guy don't sound like nobody I ever heard. Reviews and recommendations don't usually work. Should appeal to fans of Star Trek and ElfQuest. You can't sell a record by just saying how good it is. You can't sell a comic book by just saying how good it is. You play a record to show how good it is. You read a comic book to see how good it is. Heavy rotation for a new single means that you play the ass of it on the radio and on MTV. The Cerebus preview is like a guest shot on a network television show. One-time exposure. 20,000 people get to see a new comic book. A big enough sample that hopefully they'll have an idea of whether or not it's their cup of tea. It's still pretty inadequate. A couple of seconds out of Jason Lute's album or Paul Pope's 2-album set. It's still a lot more effective than the distributor's catalogs or the average store's newsletter, which just reproduces the album cover or the picture sleeve of the EP. The only place where the true equivalent of heavy rotation is possible is in the comic book stores. A retailer is resistant to the idea of handing out reading copies of a comic book or letting customers take home a copy over a weekend. This ain't a library, kid. Runs very deep in the veins of comic book merchants. But look at the analogy with a single in the music business. If someone has heard a song, hears the song in fact every hour or so for several weeks, why does he or she buy the record, single, or CD? Why is it that a customer, given a comic book on approval, doesn't come back the next day and say, "Thanks, chump, now I don't have to buy it"? Because like a single, record, or CD, once they own it, they can listen to it, read it, whenever they want. Why do we all watch It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas? We know the story, we know most of the dialogue, we know how it ends. Quality. Quality, pure and simple. The best comic books are the best advertising for comic books, not the comic books that have been made into movies, not the comic books that are best-selling toys, not the comic books that look like stationary video games. This is a leap of faith, I know. The only reason I can suggest it is because times have become so desperate at the retail level that a lot of retailers are ready to try anything to save themselves and their businesses. The reason I can suggest it is that I am not telling retailers anything they don't already know. The success rate for quality comics on approval, take this home and read it, if you don't like it, bring it back and there's no charge, is very, very high. Much higher than Yellow Pages advertising, flyers, coupons, etc., etc. It is a part of most retailers' business already. The demand for quality comic books is growing. If there are 20 stores in a city and 15 of them close down, the Cerebus fans are going to go to one of the 5 remaining stores to buy Cerebus. The Cerebus phone books sell pretty well wherever they are sold. Stores that order a lot sell a lot. Stores that order a few sell a few. Stores that give customers a copy of High Society to take home and read sell more than stores that have the phone books wrapped in plastic and taped shut. The comic book marketplace is very different from any other marketplace. Traditional marketing methods don't work here. Comics on approval is the only system I can think of that has a high success rate in the comic book field. And that system only works with quality, genuinely different material. As times become more desperate at the retail level, I think it only makes sense to move away from what isn't working and apply more time, energy, and money to what does work. The market is getting dramatically smaller very, very quickly. None of us has a clue as to how small the market is going to get. I think it is safe to say that it will get smaller and smaller until the residue of greed and sadism is gone, and what is left are quality comic books which are, in the retailer's own words, worth reading. How many fans will be left? How many customers? 50,000? 30,000? How many stores will be left? 500? 100? 50? Will comic book stores even exist at that point? Or will companies that function on a mail-order basis, like Westfield, become larger and larger as the geographic distance between surviving stores makes shopping by mail the only practical alternative for a customer contemplating a 100 or 200-mile drive to his nearest store? The only given is that there will always be people who want to write and draw comic books, and there will always be people who want to read the comic books those people write and draw. What exists between those two realities, publishing, distributing, and retailing, in Larry Marder's words, is up for grabs. Direct sales virtually wiped out the ID newsstand business as a presence in the comic book marketplace, and it did it in a little over 10 years. There is no reason to think that we have arrived at a destination. The comic book marketplace is a process, is mutating, as it always mutated, to reflect the changing needs implicit in getting stories and art from those who write and draw them to those who want to see and read them. If millions of dollars being thrown away on splashy trade show booths, dinners, full-color multi-page advertising were an effective way of accomplishing that goal, the companies who indulge in such nonsense would have had a much better year. If bigger were implicitly better, then all of the small comic book stores which are owner-operated would have been wiped out or bought up by megastore chains in the last year. Instead, it is the chains of stores who find themselves in the most perilous position at the retail level, saddled with debt, dealing with crippling levels of inventory. Bigger is demonstrably not better. Self-publishers are in a much better position to weather the coming storm than are the large companies. Owner-operated, and particularly owner-managed, one-store operations are in a better position to weather the coming storm. Retailers who are willing to downsize their operation in proportion to the diminishing size of the comic book marketplace, I think, stand a better chance of coming out on the other end more or less in one piece. If there were some other means of promoting comic books that worked as well as letting someone take them home on approval, I would recommend it, but I can't really think of any. The Cerebus World Tour book with 80 pages of comics for $2.95 will, I hope, prove useful in the same way that Cerebus number 0 did, providing a low-cost incentive for people to try the book. Of course, I have the luxury of having 80 pages of out-of-print material to work with. I wouldn't be taking this many pages in the front of Cerebus trying to analyze what's going on and offering the only solution I can see if I didn't think the situation was getting desperate or see the stores as worth saving. My instincts tell me just to stay on the sidelines and see what there is left to work with in another 6 months or so. I like to think that retailers will recognize that mindless mayhem has had its day and that it's now time to start over again with comics worth reading, whether they are self-published, small press, or mainstream books, and recognize as well that it has been their own insistence on just buying comics you enjoy reading, which has hastened our arrival at this point. I think that was the right thing to do. I think the disparity between that honest sentiment and the actual content of the stores has to be eliminated if comics retailing is to survive in its present form.
Now, some video games just have comics in them as like a cheap way of doing a cutscene. Max Payne actually did that excellently.
Yeah, Max Payne. What a great game. And Max Payne was the best comic book that's come out in the last 30 years.
I really like the story to Max Payne 1 and 2. To be honest, kind of like the story to 3. The problem is still loading. That's
the problem for me is the fact that Max Payne should be slightly tongue-in-cheek. it's supposed to be fun.
Yes.
Max Payne 3 is really not fun.
No.
Max Payne 3 is depressing as fuck.
Which, in a way, is interesting, but it's also very no fun allowed, and that's a
It's not Max Payne. It's just Rockstar being like, look how good of a writer. We're very serious writers here at Rockstar. And look at the next GTA game. Just gonna
even in Cerebus, no matter where that went, that would always try to the end of issue 200 is it was going very Looney Tunes, and it literally turns into a reference to Looney Tunes with like an eaten carrot falling onto the ground and stuff as it zooms out to show Dave Sim drawing Cerebus and all that shit. That's not even a spoiler, really, because it's like, it's even in context, it doesn't really make sense. Although it ties things together. Yeah.
We could spoil absolutely everything that happens in all 300 issues, and it wouldn't really matter because shit is so fucking strange.
Yeah, it gets... and
it is... that is definitely a problem I have with it. It's kind of incomprehensible. It's clearly written by a schizo.
Yeah,
it's massively schizo.
In fact, there's that part in Jaka's story, the beginning of it, where it's like the prose section, which, as much as I skimmed as much prose as humanly possible, I did still read through a lot of that. It was kind of designed to be bloated, but there's a section where like she cracks her head and she's in a coma as a child when she's like 8, and when she's coming out of it, it describes like these weird floating transparent shapes, and apparently that's something that schizophrenics just see, and it's like, oh boy, here's fucking Dave Sim really writing what he knows.
He really knows. It's something I've never seen before in anything, a comic, TV, none of that.
Yeah, that's another huge benefit. You told me to at least read up to Jaka's story, and I did want to, and it was worth it for sure.
Yeah, Jaka's story is my favorite. It's volume 5. I know some people say skip the first volume, but no, it's really cool fantasy story, and it sets up quite a few story threads.
Yeah, it's the most traditional storytelling of the entire series, and so it's a great jumping on point. You kind of need to have that if you're going to read the rest.
The first 50 chapters, I would say, are absolutely really solid and coherent, but the beginning, the first 15 chapters, where it's the kind of wonky old art style, still has interesting, fun, tongue-in-cheek, sort of comedic and yet dark fantasy stories, adventures of like usually Cerebus kind of investigating or trying to raid like some evil wizard and his evil
it's
magic
Conan
artifact.
the Barbarian. It's the first parody that's being performed as Conan the Barbarian, but it's parody in the manga sense that it just means that it's similar.
Yeah, like a jumping off point.
It's not making fun of anything.
Yeah,
it's being pretty serious.
He's just having adventures, and it's like a rip-off of Red Sonja shows up, and she's a complete moron. But at the same time, the story has more sympathy for her as it goes on, especially way later. But it's just like sort of barbarian, crazy adventures, evil wizards, and that kind of stuff in a fun way. And that's why the beginning is still really fun to read. And then you get into high society where this barbarian cartoon aardvark is in the upper crust of human society, and everyone's just throwing... I started to suspect it was a parable or allegory of Dave Sim's sudden success, because he blew up so massively around that time, of course. So people in the comic are throwing Cerebus money for nothing. They're throwing him Cerebus... They're just being like, here's like $500 so you can hear my stupid idea that you have nothing to do with. And Cerebus is just getting drunk and going like, okay.
It's it's an important part of the contrast is he starts off as Conan the Barbarian, and then he's basically thrown into this world he understands nothing about except that he'll get money from it. That's the only thing he cares about.
Yeah,
he gets some money so he can get drunk.
Yeah, he ends up getting caught in this political intrigue, but he's He's not dumb. He's just unsophisticated. He wants money and booze.
Which impresses the other politicians. It's kind of like being there where they think, oh, this guy is so straightforward. He's no bullshit. So therefore, his time must be worth even more of our money. So they just keep paying him more and more until eventually he becomes like prime minister.
Yeah, he actually understands the situation. He just does not give a shit about it at all.
Yeah,
He
rightfully
doesn't
so.
want to be part, except for the fact that it provides him money, which he can use to buy booze and get all sorts of frivolities. That was actually, it was like, I think it was like issue 200 or 210 or something like that, where he's like, what is it that I actually want in life? And it's like, I just wanna fucking go and get drunk. And it's like, okay, so what am I doing now?
Yeah,
then he lives in a bar for like 5 years.
Yeah. He runs his own bar for just no reason.
It does its own time skip, a very advanced ahead of even manga. In fact, a lot of stuff that happens in this reminded me. You mentioned it's like your favorite manga is Berserk, or it's way up there at least.
Yeah. My favorite comic of all time is Berserk, and my second favorite is Cerebus.
Yeah, and to be honest, I would put Berserk up there, even with the just ending out of nowhere and extremely, eternally tragic death of good old Kenny boy, Kentaro Miura.
Press F to pay respects.
Yeah, because like the first several arcs of Berserk are some of the best storytelling, and then as it keeps going on, it's at worst extremely entertaining. That is the absolute worst Berserk ever gets for 300. I don't even know how long it's over 300 chapters. I don't know where it's at now anymore because it's it's a nebulous area.
I think it was over 300,
Yeah,
but
new writer, and it's on hiatus again.
Yeah, to be honest, they're going to have to figure out how to just make it their own story. They can't make it, Miura's again because he's dead.
that's the simple fact is they kind of should make it their own story because you're not going to be able to replicate what you need. What I'd rather have is that they try to replicate him, but I know they can't.
Mm-hmm.
They're never going to succeed at that.
I mean, who could? Like, who's gonna anywhere in the world? I don't think there would be anyone who could.
I could, maybe me.
Oh, well. But anyways, yeah. The Cerebus, on the other hand, is almost like, well, we get to see the story finished, but is it what you really wanted to see?
Honestly, though, on the subject of Berserk, though, and Serbiburbs, they both have problems. Honestly, for me anyway. Berserk started to get really silly. It was right around the point where they get on the boat. Before they even get on the boat,
yeah, the boat was always.
The pirate captain shows up, but he's been possessed by an octopus or some shit, and they have to fight. God.
Yeah,
it's very, very silly. It's ridiculous.
It's very drawn out.
Yeah, it goes on for way too long.
Yes.
He started doing a whole lot of that. Where it's like, here's more humor with the imp. It's like,
here's Puck cosplaying as Star Wars characters.
Yeah, the bizarre fourth wall shit. It's like, oh no, did I accidentally start reading Deadpool in this? Why? But you know what's funny, though, is that Cerebus, of course, does that first, and you can almost say better. Although some of the things that Cerebus does better than Berserk, that's certainly
fourth
one of
wall
them.
breaks and pop culture parodies.
Yeah, the parodies especially, which I didn't even like reading, to be honest. Every time that Roach guy showed up, I was like, no. And he would fill the page with so much fucking text. I was like, and it was like it would be splintered over each other, so it was not meant to be read.
It's Cerberus, Cerberburbs, just as a story itself. It's something that I appreciate because it's stuff I've never seen before. The comic is also packed full of stuff I've seen a million times before that point even. It's not like it was new. A lot of the jokes and stuff is like, he straight up has Groucho Marx as a character.
Yeah, and Foghorn,
in the story as a different character.
Foghorn Leghorn, except it's Elric of Melnibone. a parody, basically, character of those two combined. He talks like Foghorn Leghorn.
And I honestly have no idea
Elric.
why he's there. It feels like it just drags down the story. I'm trying to fucking read this story here, and this guy comes along, and he serves nothing. He does nothing.
Or the actual story part of the story kind of comes to a screeching halt while this hijinks is playing out. It's definitely some of the weakest part, but at the same time, you kind of have to at least read it a bit, because it does provide some context.
That's when I started skimming, though. I started skimming specifically because I was trying to read that, and it's like, this reads like he just copy pasted it out of a script for Looney Tunes or something.
Well,
dropped it into his comic.
It's very interesting how that seems to cycle back and forth, where there will be really tight, breezy storytelling that's visually told, sometimes very sparse on dialogue, and then there will be, there will be that for like
switches to a Spider-Man Secret Wars parody.
Well, like for 10 issues, it'll be like really tight and interesting, and then for the next 10 issues, it'll be a bizarre parody where it's these goofy characters, and it's a parody, and it's
very text heavy.
Like text to the point where it's circling around the page and swirls, where you have to, like, if you were reading a book, you would have to physically turn the book sideways to read it. And that
another thing that skimmed.
In that case, that was because the characters were falling down drunk.
Yes.
And Sim was experimenting with panel layouts. I remember that from High Society because I've read it.
Yeah,
and that stuff looks great. All that stuff looks great.
It's fascinating. It's really fascinating stuff.
And it's like, I can't really read this because I don't have a physical book in my hands, so I'm just going to skip it.
But also, at the same time, a lot of that's happening is not really relevant to the overall story.
I think it seems like it's almost designed on purpose to be skimmed or just breezed over.
Some of
quickly.
It is, yeah, especially when it gets really schizo and the word balloons start like separating within the panel, like
and
broken
they merge
glass
together so that you can't actually read them.
Yeah, like letters will bleed off into other letters so that it's interrupting itself, which is it was intentional and fascinating, and it looks great, but it's also intentionally impossible to read.
Yeah, it's such a mood whiplash when Cerebus switches between these goofy Looney Tunes hijinks and this incredibly serious story about the perils of political ambition.
Which that's my favorite part of it, though, is there's church and state, and it's very bizarre because it's very protracted storytelling. But when you think about it in the overall, it's one of the most fucked up, bizarre stories about politics and religion, where Cerebus, he becomes prime minister, and then I think he's like deposed, and then he becomes prime minister again, and then they make him pope. And
because other politicians incorrectly think that he would be a useful, easy to control political pawn.
Yeah, and it goes so off the rails,
and he
intentionally.
He never turns down any of this stuff either. He always agrees. He always goes along with it.
Almost out of spite, he goes along with it. But basically his only act as Pope is he wants all of the gold coins in the entire world brought to his hotel, just so it can be piled up and nothing done with it.
Oh, he wants to buy mercenaries.
That
never happens. It never happens, but that's his plan.
He also wanted a perfect gold sphere made.
Yeah. The gold sphere.
And then it's like, no, this isn't right. Do it again.
Yeah, it keeps well, supposedly there's a very bizarre part of that where it's like a prophecy where it has to be the perfect gold sphere has to be ascended up this giant black tower that basically goes into space. And once you're up there, you will begin the ascension. And so Cerebus does all of that just to see what happens. And it takes place over like 50 chapters of just constant insanity. It's constantly cutting to Groucho Marx.
It goes from him basically manipulating people using religion to the religion being true, and then he ascends to godhood.
It kind of...
Except it's not godhood. He talks to a fat guy on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he talks to literally Dave Sim.
Well, that's way, way later, though. Because all that stuff happens around 100.
A bunch of stuff.
Yeah, all that happens around chapter 100. By the time he's talking to Dave Sim, it's like chapter 190. So that's long after he's not been Pope anymore.
Dave Sim pulls the I forget what the fucking Looney Tunes was, where Bugs Bunny is just animating Daffy Duck.
Duck-a-muck.
Yeah, the Duck-a-muck.
He's just torturing him the entire time.
That's the end of 200.
Starts doing that.
Yeah, that's the end of chapter 200. He even goes like, well, what is, ain't I a stinker, and all that stuff. Just goofing around. And at the same time, it's like Cerebus, the character, is put through hell. And that's around the time where it's revealed that Cerebus is a hermaphroditic tulpa of Dave Sim's, that Dave Sim is trying to guide and be helpful to, but Cerebus is just impossible to rein in, to the point where Cerebus is doing everything wrong, to the extra point where Dave Sim is showing Cerebus alternate universes where he does end up with Jaka, and because of that, he grows bored of her, cheats on her, because Cerebus is like, well, if you're God, then, Dave Sim, you can make it so that she loves me anyway. And it's this huge monkey's paws situation, because he's like, okay, here's what happens if I do that. And like, Cerebus gets bored of her one day, starts macking on the big-titted redhead neighbor.
The next door neighbor lady who was like the next step in ultimate idealized female big fat ass tits,
extra
belly,
thickica. And because Jaka is forced to love Cerebus, she has to commit suicide so that he can be with her. And it just, all of a sudden, that just snaps out and ends right there, and Cerebus is back floating on a cube in space. All of this happens over like 2 or 3 chapters. And it's...
and there's no alternate universe in which Cerebus is happy.
No.
He's too stubborn, too selfish, too cantankerous to ever be part of anything good.
Yeah, apparently, and it's those chapters are Dave Sim saying, like, even I can't make Cerebus a good person. And in a way, that's really fascinating, because it means the whole comic this entire time was basically about an anti-villain. Instead of an anti-hero, he's an anti-villain, where he's kind of the bad guy, but not the worst of the bad guys. And yet, at the same time, he's borderline irredeemable, and we're following this story of him and a very protracted downfall, which involves him rising to like the highest pinnacles of all society and culture.
I enjoyed about the high society section. As much as I didn't read a lot of the back and forth dialogue, it was clear that it's like, oh, the guy who's in charge of the entire country is basically just fucking over everybody, and they keep voting for him because he wins the popularity contest.
Yes.
That's the only reason why it keeps going on.
Again, very apt to real life back then, especially in the 80s. You can see there's a lot of 80s influence in the sort of the topics that Dave Sim is introducing to the comic. In a way, is like the 80s commercialist mega church
televangelist shit.
The televangelism stuff.
Yeah, I could see that being an inspiration for the church and state volumes.
Yeah, I think that's, in a way, that's exactly precisely what he was making the story about at that time. And it is a good sort of satirical document of just how it felt in the 80s to see like all of the boomers dumping their children's college funds and retirement funds into the mega churches and televangelists to be flushed down the toilet with drugs and hookers and all that shit. And the
compared to Cerebus and his room full of stacks of gold.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see it.
Like a bit the size of an actual building, bigger than in a room. You had to make a room specially large just to fit all of the gold in the world just to sit there. And it's like a lot of people, I think, forget that's why that's people like to act like, oh, Christianity's under attack because of Reddit and atheism, and that none of that's actually true. The fact is, it basically came, Christianity's under attack because of its own failings for decades, and that was a major part of it, was the whole televangelism thing, and revealing essentially that the exact people that everyone wanted to pretend are the purest and the least corruptible are, of course, the most corruptible, and that's basically never going to change either.
Even Jesus himself warned against hypocrisy and getting your own house in order before you correct others.
Yeah, that's why there's that saying I heard a couple of years ago, I think from somebody who just follows Doug Snaple, but I think he replied to me just saying the last Christian died on the cross, and it's like that's very tragic, but it's also
true.
A perfect explanation. Yeah, it's very true. And again, that's its own topic. We could talk about religion for hours and hours.
Yeah, let's talk about Dave Sims' religion. No, I want to talk about Jaka's story, at least, because that's the pinnacle of this whole series.
Yeah, and it's also the most personal story in the entire thing, at least so far, from what I've read. And it's the smallest story, but also I think the most interesting thing about it is it ends around the time that everyone was starting to accuse Dave Sim of misogyny, and 20 chapters later he did the whole female void swallowing up the male light stuff. But the fact is, the male characters are not good, pure, innocent. Like, Cerebus is not a good, pure, innocent person, and the closest thing to it is Jaka.
Yeah, Rick, he's not malicious. He's just kind of naive and dumb.
He's a dopey guy, and yeah, he's not evil.
But you can't hate him.
And the thing is, Jaka also isn't perfect either. She's a very flawed, very human, like kind of the most human character. But there's certainly not a lack of sympathy for her, even though Jaka's story ends with a very kind of tragic revelation that could very easily make people hate her justifiably. But at the same time, it's still a very human moment. It's actually a very fascinating, and I think it's also interesting. I remember the few times I did skim the letter section, I remember somebody being like, "Oh, Dave, you got your head up your own ass. You really think you're a great writer, but this stuff is all just, that kind of shit." And it's like, you read Jaka's story, and it's like, no, you can't even read stuff like this in novels. You can't find this kind of stuff in TV shows. Even the way it's presented is perfect. And it kind of can't be presented in any other medium but comics. So it's kind of like the pinnacle. Not even getting into the way he does lettering, which is not just experimental, but perfect.
He's got to be the best letterer in comics history.
Yeah.
He does so many cool and interesting things with the letters. When he has characters talk, he'll put emphasis on a syllable by making the letters slightly bigger, or if they're
thinner,
angry,
even.
Yeah, if they're extremely angry, they'll be crossed out or on fire. It's like, this guy's amazing.
That's even some of the later stuff, and because there's some of that where he gets too experimental. But if you go into the earlier stuff, you go around, say, chapter 100, and you just look at any of the tricks he starts doing with lettering, there's so much that can be learned instantly just from looking at it. It's genuinely, it's a masterclass in each individual chapter. That not just the way the lettering itself and the way he'll draw letters bigger, thinner, bolder, sometimes bigger, thinner, bolder, smaller, all in the same balloon. But the way he'll draw the balloons, the way he'll give extra dead space around the lettering in the balloons.
Yeah, to make their voice seem smaller. It's such a neat technique.
It's a like an instant classic technique. And he didn't maybe invent all of that, but he certainly has mastered it, and it shows a lot of great skill and control. Along with, of course, the scenery. One of the main points I wanted to make in my notes was the way he draws, I guess you would say, inclement weather, or just, harsh winds and harsh snows and rain. The way the rains look incredibly wet and stinky and sticky and fucking all that kind of shit sometimes. The way winds look harsh, the way he draws it is really fascinating, and a lot can be learned from that, which American comics, of course, still aren't even close to starting to learn from that. Well, whereas manga is good at that on its own, but I think could stand to learn from it too.
Exactly. And so I'm looking at the Cerebus wiki, and the background artist Gerhard, he first appeared in issue 65. So the first 64 issues were entirely drawn by Sim.
Yeah, he did all the backgrounds, which naturally a lot of work. And Gerhard certainly, like, he wasn't just there to fill in. You can tell he's kind of a master himself. His backgrounds are fantastic.
Yeah, like the scenes in the cathedral where the aardvarks are arguing with each other. Just the backgrounds are freaking unbelievable.
Well, there's that there's like a fight scene in, let's see, what did I put that in the notes? 178, or no, 181 specifically. That fight scene, I would say, is up there with anything from Berserk or even One Punch Man, where the camera is like flying up over into the air like 20, 30 feet and then swooping back down, and it's doing all these bizarre camera tricks for a fight
so
between them.
Cool.
I know, it's amazing. That was like, shit, this comic's just peaking right here, it seems. And at the same time, this is the same comic that had bizarre, hilarious, satirical conversations of people, sitting down and discussing ridiculous, stupid shit.
He definitely suffers from the madness of the muses.
Yeah, of course.
Which is something I think I kind of require if I'm going to like something nowadays.
Yeah, it's like, it's not good enough unless somebody's at least a little crazy, a little bit crazy. But it has to be crazy in a good way because, of course, as we've documented for decades now, there are a lot of indie comic creators who are crazy and their comics suck monkey fuck.
But they're not the crazy where they're schizophrenic. They're the crazy where they clearly learned wrong. They were taught wrong on purpose as a joke.
As a joke, yes. So yeah, this I figured. Well, there was one thing. About the aardvarks. There are only 3 in the world, and they're magical beings. Basically, they're like the ultra nuclear Ubermensch or something.
So Dave Sim talks about the magical nature of the aardvarks in the comments section.
Mm-hmm.
He describes Cerebus as having a magnifier ability. So things around him become more intense. So politics becomes more intense. Religion becomes more intense. Crazy people become crazier.
The same for the other aardvarks too, because one of them is the leader of like the feminist army, the Sirenists, basically. And that was actually a very fascinating story that was told over just like 2 chapters, where it was the third aardvark shows up to basically sort of lore dump that, but it's just such a bizarre fucking story, and kind of tragic in a way too, of course.
Yeah, well, Cerebus is on the moon. Yeah. There's another aardvark who's leading this militant matriarchy that ends up taking over the continent off screen.
Yeah, and a lot of that does get filled in later, too.
Yeah, they constantly build up their power until they basically, he kind of ends up in their territory. And then, they end up taking. They fill a power vacuum.
Yeah.
After the other country collapses, after he's done being both pope and fucking
Prime
It's
Minister.
a prime
Yeah.
minister, yeah.
Then becomes barkeep in the middle of Cyranus territory.
Which they usually don't. They don't approve of. They don't approve of alcohol use normally, but they let him do that. And it's like, huh? Why?
Yeah, it's always special, unprincipled exceptions, you could say. But
Yeah, because
at one
because
point
they're corrupt.
Yeah.
Plus, at one point, it explains that Siren is afraid that Cerberus, as a hermaphrodite, might be able to impregnate himself.
Yeah.
And if he can become a mother, that puts him on the top rung of Cyranus theology.
Yeah, that was another female character, Astoria, who is very interesting herself because she's kind of also an anti-villain. She's a human, though, and
Yeah, I did find that is a very fascinating character. I liked reading about her, but also it seems like she's in the same position Cerbus is in, where she just ends up in positions of tremendous power.
Well,
and she doesn't know what she's doing with it.
as it turns out, as it's kind of revealed around the end of, around like 190, that big lore dump, though, which isn't just a lore dump, of course. It's very well told, but and not like too text heavy either, surprisingly, considering how text heavy earlier parts of the whole comic are. But it's kind of revealed that she was constantly getting Cerebus into these positions of power for her own ends, and just the way that it would constantly not work, and it was sort of leading to her about to be executed. I mean, she's like in prison twice and shit. It's such a bizarre, convoluted story. That's really her part of it is really interesting.
Plus, her execution is an echo of a different execution that occurred with her previous incarnation or some shit. It's freaking weird.
There are some weird body swapping
I think
things.
it was Anne Boleyn.
Yeah.
Anne Boleyn, who was like
she was beheaded eventually, wasn't she?
I forget. I think she was the queen, and she was executed.
Yeah, people might call Dave Sim a dumb misogynist, but he really has some incredibly well-written female characters.
I am not
He's
sure
a
there's...
He's a smart misogynist.
I'm not sure there is such a thing as a dumb misogynist, and Dave Sim kind of proves that. But
You're
yeah,
right.
at the same time, not just smart female characters, but even when they are manipulative or bad, they're still at least partially sympathetic. Like, you may not hate that. Like, it's actually very bizarre that Cerbus does just rape Astoria, and she does also just walk it off, which lol. But she
that pissed off so many readers.
Yeah,
it's willing to be honest in a way that a lot of people aren't, and it might be because he's crazy. He might be crazy. He might be a genius.
Yes, or the same thing. But yeah, she is.
My favorite quote from one of my favorite movies of all time, Patch Adams or something. I don't fucking remember which.
Became a doctor because of the movie
Man on the Moon. That's.
Oh yeah, no, yes,
that's what it's from.
Oh
That's
yeah,
from the trailer.
That's from the trailer.
You might be crazy, but you might be a genius. Shut up.
Yeah, the part I wanted to roll my eyes, but at the same time, I actually still like Man on the Moon. I think that's a good movie.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely understand what it's like.
Yes.
I understand exactly. His
Movie
plight.
about literally me. Well, it's pretty good. Oh, well, except he's Jewish, but whatever. All he had to do was eat bacon, right? Anyways, but
that's what we did.
Yeah,
we weren't really Jewish.
No, we're not Jewish.
In the first place.
But and Astoria, though, is kind of like a counterpoint to Jaka, where Jaka is, in fact, they're related, aren't they? Technically, or Astoria married.
Yeah, they were both married to Lord Julius.
Or no, it wasn't Jaka. Is Lord Julius's
niece,
daughter?
Yeah.
Or, okay, yeah.
Well, again,
I was going to say it
gets convoluted. Yeah, yeah.
For all I know, one of them is his daughter and is also his wife, and it's just treated like, what can you do?
Yeah. When I was reading Cerebus as a kid, I had no idea who Groucho Marx or Margaret Thatcher or Mick and Keefe are. They were just funny cartoon characters.
They're goofy cartoon characters, which is, again, every time they show up, nothing happens, basically, except them Dave Sim showing off
their patter.
Well, Dave Sim showing off him not just writing their goofy accents, but physically drawing their goofy accents with, again, that lettering showing up.
That also honestly makes it a lot harder to read.
Yeah,
you're trying to understand their weird accent.
Yeah, that was a big every time someone had, in fact, there's the part Cerebus sneezing fire, and I was like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? And
Is he gonna sneeze fire now?
He talks like he has a cold. He breathes fire now. They fly now, but
yeah, and it's arduous to read. Honestly.
Yeah, because he talks like he has a cold the whole time, and it's just really hard to read. But
I was
here's
very
the thing:
glad
is that
when he stopped that.
If I had read this back then, I would have been able to put more attention to it. Like I imagine reading this as it was coming out, and because every issue was like a fucking World's Fair.
If we hadn't been reading Nintendo Power.
Yeah, I used to reread Nintendo Power so fucking much. I wish I had Cerebus because that would have given me more to do because every issue was so fucking packed of tons and tons and tons of shit. Not just the comic, not just the letter sections, but essays, other people's comics, advertisements, all this shit.
Nestor, it was Nestor.
Howard and Nestor.
Howard, that's right. Howard, the president of Nintendo of America.
Yeah, Howard. Yeah, that Howard shows up in the Tetris movie. A guy playing him in the Tetris movie.
Oh, shit. Wow. Oh, that's wonderful.
I need to see that. But I also read a lot of Nintendo Power as a kid. I especially liked the comics.
The comics in those were so fucking good.
Yeah, they had the Mario comic and then they had the Zelda comic.
I reread the Metroid comic recently, the Super Metroid comic for Nintendo Power, because first of all, it has Riona in it, and that's like very groundbreaking right there. Is that she steps on that trap floor tile, and a giant spike just slams straight through her entire shoulder.
Bisects her arm.
Yes, but she also just walks it off, just like Astoria did with the rape. But yeah,
very important.
The Mario comic. Step. The Mario comic was really funny in Nintendo Power too, and also it had some pure fetish fuel. Where of course, Princess Toadstool, or Peach as she was eventually,
she was not known as Peach
called
back then.
Yeah, she's still Princess Toadstool to me. But the part where she's dressed up as Luigi and she has the bombs and all that shit, that part still.
This is hot.
Yes,
this is hot.
Whoa, she's so fucking hot. But the Star Fox comic.
She turns into Bowser.
Yes, she turns into a female Bowser.
She gets a crown and turns into a female Rule 63 Bowser.
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot. I honestly forgot some of those comics, although I read them a billion times. I just kind of forgot. I haven't thought about them in such a long time. And honestly, it's a shame.
They have some of the most top-notch art in comic. Like, they were more I read that shit over and over again in our old Nintendo Powers, and I wouldn't read Cape shit because it's like I remember I can't go play the video game of this Cape shit.
Who had like his own Cape shit collection, and I'm reading. It was like one of the.
It was Wolverine.
It was a Wolverine. He had a lot of Wolverine and X-Men, and there was like this Wolverine. It was like Wolverine versus Knife Hands guy, and it's like they stab each other a bunch of times. And then, I don't even remember, I think then Wolverine cuts his head off or some shit. And it's like, this is lame.
I remember the one where...
I don't like this.
It was like young Wolverine fell in love with some young Indian Canadian chick. And she's running away from home. And it's like, oh no, it's like tragic backstory. Which, to be honest, I found a little interesting. But I was like 12 at the time or something. But, yeah, Nintendo Power just had amazing comics in it. And Cerebus would have been like almost too much for me, I think, but at the time anyways. But certainly now I have much more understanding of it. It's more readable. Yeah. Plus it's easier to go pirate. That's also good.
Yeah, Cerebus was released in a remastered edition in 2019, so get that version if you can.
Yeah, if you're going to buy comics, which I would recommend, because I mean, I did purchase, several issues from the dollar bins, that counts. And they used to sell they actually called them phone books because they were so fucking thick of Cerebus comics, because there's just so much comic. But he would also reprint all the letters shit too.
He was turning down like publishers.
That's
people wanted to publish his comic. And he's like, nah. No,
was
you're
like
not
a
allowed to
fucking
publish my comic.
nuclear flare with indie comics. Because don't forget, Cerebus was the most popular indie comic of all time until Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's like it goes to show that's what it took to fucking rise above Cerebus. But there was also Bone, there was ElfQuest, there was all sorts of goofy parodies.
Honestly, I tried to read Bone, and it's like fine.
I haven't
But
read.
it's like, is this really the best comic ever? I don't know.
You may not have read the beginning of it.
I read the first 5. I'm pretty sure it was the first 5.
I thought
the first 5.
I thought it was the first 5 too, and then it turns out, oh, this was made in like fucking 2008. And it's like, okay, this is not the first 5 then.
Not what it told me, so I have no fucking idea.
I do. I also read Bone as a kid in the early '90s.
That would be the perfect time. That's the perfect time for Bone.
I didn't even know that Jeff Smith and Dave Sim were friends until I later found out they became bitter enemies over the whole misogyny thing.
Yes. In fact, there's a quote. There's a quote from Jeff Smith and his wife, his Jeet wife, in the big female void essay where I think it's Dave Sim says to Jeff, like, would you agree that maleness is death and femaleness is birth? And Jeff was like, yes. And so Dave goes, so which one's winning? And Jeff is like, no, we're not doing this. Like, that's how he wrote it in this article too. And I think Jeff Smith tried to contend is like, this is not how this happened or something like that. And I don't have any personal opinions on what Jeff Smith.
He would have had to say, Dave Sim, I mean, Jeff Smith, honestly, I would just assume it would be feminist pablum, in which case I don't need to hear it.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
You kind of default to shit livery with a lot of them, which is where... Here, I did screen cap it. It's Michael Moorcock.
That's right.
He
we
supposedly...
posted that recently, didn't we?
Yeah, he supposedly got a letter. I guess I didn't save it into the Cerebus folder. I just posted it to our wonderful Discord. But it was like, I don't know, 140 something? It was before the big, it was way before, in fact. It was before the female void essay thing, the Dave Sim misogyny page. But he prints a letter from Michael Moorcock saying like, ooh, I didn't know you up your own ass with misogyny. And, and Dave Sim is like, well, fuck you, I guess we're not friends anymore. And then I started actually more heavily skimming the pages, the letter sections, because I want to see what other people said about it. And then, usually that's like 4 issues later. And then 4 issues later, he posts another letter from Michael Moorcock saying, hey, that previous letter was not from me. That was a hoax. And Dave Sim saying, this is very embarrassing. I apologize very much to you.
He does the exact thing.
Verified it first.
The exact thing I keep telling Comicsgate needs to do, if they want to be considered actually in good faith, is when you fuck up, you should apologize. Instead, they're like, when they fuck up, it's like, actually, it's your fault.
And also,
excuse me,
verify any lies that you're like. Yes. Here's the thing: it is incredibly understandable that Dave Sim did this, that this happened, because he was already getting shit. He was already facing a bunch of whining. If you're
anti-feminist in the 70s, especially, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, that is especially when you can't do that.
Yeah, and you sort of get used to seeing your supposed peers denounce you in public and that kind of shit. So I can understand why Dave Sim would have absolutely just believed it.
We just saw the Riyadh Comedy Festival. A whole bunch of comedians showed their ass.
Yeah.
But it's especially Bill Burr.
Not just that, is that Michael Moorcock apparently had been friends with him for years. And it is, again, not surprising to find out that somebody you thought was your friend just starts being a big faggot at you. So, yeah, I can absolutely see... Dave Sim was justified in assuming it was yet another peer and, former friend revealing themselves to, not have any principles or just be thin-skinned.
Because way back in issue 5, when the Elric parody first appeared. Michael Moorcock, the real one, he saw that and he thought it was funny.
Yeah, I do remember that. I actually remember reading. Well, first of all, seeing that character and being like, "Oh," and it's sad because I only was familiar with Elric of
Melnibone.
Yes, in the comic,
That's what Metal Spoony calls, or Pseudo Spoony. That's what he calls him, is Elric of Melnibone.
No,
I read one of the Elric novels, but it was ages ago.
I read a few of the comic adaptations from recently, which was kind of neat, but was also like I don't think they had adapted any actual story.
It was a very plain story. It was like I've seen this 20 million times.
Well, I don't know because again, like he's supposed to be a mercenary. The comic I read didn't have any of that. So I don't know what the fuck I read then, but
he's also supposed to have Witcher powers, I guess, because he's the Witcher.
He's supposed to be a blatant ripoff of the Witcher in every single way possible, and
using a time machine.
Yeah, and even some ways that are essentially impossible. But yeah, that's what Razor Fist, aka Pseudo Spoony, because he's an abject sued. But he recommended that stuff. He recommended Elric, and so that's why I looked it up. And that's why I had even ever heard of Elric. So when I read Cerebus and saw the parody, I recognized him. It's like, oh, I recognize this character.
I read a lot of fantasy novels. I've written a couple. They didn't sell, but yeah, I have my finger in that pie as well. So yeah, Cerebus was hot shit in the comics world in the 80s. Even had a crossover with
the
Ninja
late
Turtles.
70s, even like late 70s. Again, it was just blowing up instantly. That's how old it goes back, and that's how like it became its own company essentially. To again, where to the point where people were publishing their own comics in Cerebus just because they could. They were promoting in it and all that shit. It was the place to be. It was like better than Wizard magazine. Well, maybe not, but who knows? I never read Wizard magazine, and I don't care.
I read a little bit. I didn't care about collecting stuff for money. I just like the articles.
Yeah, no, those Nintendo powers would have been worth hundreds of millions.
Yes, exactly. Now. But well, that's the thing. The articles from it, that would be the place to be. Is if you want to write an art, if you're like a creator and you want to get some important point across, you might write it for Wizard. That would make sense.
Yeah, pre-internet, that was the source for comic book news.
Yeah, if that's what we were doing nowadays, if back in the day we were existing trying to get a writing career off the ground, that's what I imagine we'd be doing.
Yes. And there's still people not trying to make like Wizard, but there's Sersova. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but that guy's putting out magazines pretty regularly. I think it's quarterly or something, maybe a few a year or something. But it's like Mark Pellegrini writes short stories that are in that, and I don't think they have open submissions necessarily, but they, if you write a story, I could possibly get something in there. But I like that other people are trying to do like, collected magazines of short stories and stuff still, and getting it funded.
We have thrown around the idea of a Fediverse zine, but we haven't done anything with it yet, and I lost my passion for writing years ago.
Yeah, seeing how not just the industry.
Writing is for fags. Reading is for fags, and so is writing.
But the community and all that shit. I would still love to see a Fediverse magazine or some kind of collected thing of fucking the shit poster gazette or whatever the hell.
That's exactly what it should be called too.
It would be cool. I mean, we helped bring some more artists specifically to shit poster.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So does our admin.
It's the best
Moon
place.
Son.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
the best place for art because you're not enslaved to the algorithm there.
Yeah, my brother has been the one who is like always trying to get into contact with other artists and stuff.
Well, for the longest time.
We need artists if we're going to do anything with this art scene.
Basically, when I used to draw my own comics on 4chan, there were other people who were drawing on 4chan. And because of that...
we found out about Jerk.
That's where I fucking met Sparrow and that kind of stuff, too.
Wasn't Nopeflub? Nopflub?
I think he was. I think he was there at some point, but I think he just met on the Dumbler.
The Okeki board, which was I.
I think it was after that, but yeah, the I board. It was a couple people. Nice Mod also. But yeah, it was clearly a few people who really got it, and since then I've been just knowing people who are artists and that kind of stuff. Jerk used to be in like sort of a bigger art community when DeviantArt was a bigger thing, again, like the early 2010s and really the late 2000s. A good time for it. Now social media has basically absorbed all that. Now it's just all Twitter, essentially. Kind of a shame, but at the same time, well, the shame of it is the algorithm will bury you out of nowhere. Like huge artists that I follow are like, why is nobody seeing? Too. Yeah, it's so uncontrollable. I am quite sure the people who run the site have no idea how it actually works and can't control it.
Even they don't. What was that thing that we just saw yesterday, where it's like, this company will just change your rates at random. It's like, what? What am I supposed to do about that then?
Yeah, it was like not Grubhub, although I think somebody posted like a blind item by either Grubhub or DoorDash, but it was some, not like a dating site, but it would just it would change people's passwords without telling them, so they couldn't get into their account. So
it was a streaming site or some shit like that.
It was it was to artificially boost metrics, and it was something years and years ago.
Yeah,
like in 2015, Netflix
changed
their
passwords.
Yeah, changed their passwords. Did. Yeah, there's just all sorts of bizarre fuckery, and again, that's the algorithm.
The fact that the price will just go up unless you're a new customer, so you're getting scammed if you actually don't cancel.
The masses basically are enslaved to the algorithm, and in order to get out of that, you end up finding shit like, say, Cerebus. That Cerebus was the escaping the algorithm of the 80s, essentially. Because the algorithm was, of course, the big two. It was Cape Shit, when they wouldn't even call it Cape Shit. Shit. But yeah, the whole system kind of bringing itself low. And
but also, this is the free market. When the free market allows alternatives to be made available.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember in like 97 when Marvel filed for bankruptcy because their comics were shit?
Yes.
The comics were shit, but also the business was so corrupt.
They were
They had been corrupt for a long time.
They got bought by like a major toy company, and I think the big announcement was, gentlemen,
Topps trading cards or something.
Yeah, gentlemen, we now own Superman. And the guy was like, no, it's Spider-Man. And the president goes, shit, how do we get out of this? And just, again, the people, that
is hilarious.
That is the top level of how people see comic books.
Was way bigger as a comic book than Superman could ever hope to be at the time.
At that time, yes. And the funny thing
still
is,
didn't matter.
However,
the guy wanted Superman.
As important as people see comics at any era or to any degree, the highest level of that is somebody accidentally thinking they bought Superman, the rights to Superman. That is what you are aspiring to be.
That is a crystalline pure example of how useless and shitty and worthless Cape Shit is on a fundamental level.
If you have respect for superhero comics, that's what you're aspiring to worship and respect, is that.
Did you see the Cerebus Spawn crossover from like 93?
I own it.
We have that. We have that.
In fact, I found several copies of that, and I was tempted to buy multiple copies of it.
What is this? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, but I read it again like 2011, and I was like, this is incredible. This is one of the most incredible comic books I've ever seen in my fucking life. And I think Dave Sim didn't really have much love for Image after that point either.
Because Image was clearly... Image had no value of writing, and Dave Sim is definitely... Say what you will about his writing, but he definitely values the concept.
Yes. Probably above everything else, almost too much maybe, but at the same time, he definitely understood also the combination and presentation of putting writing into the visual medium of comics. And that was great. But yeah, that The one with all the superheroes caged up and shit, and Cerebus is just standing there being like, "Those are the ones who are owned." Essentially, it's a really striking image. We did articles. I know we did posts about that on Shitty Webcomics.
I remember because I was there. I witnessed your dad's faggiest hour.
Fucking welcome to the jungle, Kevin. Oh wait, he doesn't say that. Well, Lord GT. Speaking of classic comics,
hold on to your assholders.
I love the one. It's just speaking of great comic moments, just that close up of his mouth where he goes, "Ha ha, faugs," just before he's about to
Best
fucking
webcomic ever made.
Beat up his own son. Yeah, almost maybe just in a few ways better than Cerebus and Berserk, but the best webcomic for sure. Yeah, Buttlord GT. We reviewed that. I know, didn't we do Shitty Webcomics Weekly about that at least?
Yeah, like 9 years ago, you covered Buttlord GT.
Wait, yeah, it was a comparison. I think we compared Buttlord GT to like My Hero Academia or something. I don't fucking remember. It was something like that, though. That was a lot. That goes to show our expertise.
Okay. I still have the files. It was a Sad Husband short box, Buttlord versus One Punch Man.
Okay. Yeah, and One Punch Man is certainly a good comparison. Because One Punch Man still has like some of the most top tier art in comic history, but I stopped reading it because the
story turned to shit.
They were just piddling around, and first of all, Saitama doesn't even show up anymore, and it's just some guy who wants to kill superheroes, and it's like, okay, I get he's a villain, but where's this going? And they're just like, some people are tunneling underground, and it's just going nowhere. And it's like, what? Huh? What happened to the funny stuff? I started reading for the funny stuff. Because the funny stuff is still funny.
Yeah, amazing art. I still read it for that, but yeah, the story sucks now. It should have ended already.
It should have ended with that. At least a good point would be the alien ship, because I mean it's one of the most perfect chapter to chapter, the best comic. Just about with like no downsides. Every single chapter is extremely funny, and it ends with like meme after meme. It's like, oh no, the armor that has held back my impossible strength has been destroyed, and of course Saitama just goes, okay, that just classic shit, and that's where it should have ended, was after that arc. And not that there's not some good stuff after that, but it's just the perfect ending for that. And that was like the curse of Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, is that they would just keep going and going. A Bleach, for at least people who read that.
Much like Cerebus should have ended after issue 200.
Yeah.
Instead of going into a biography of Ernest Hemingway and other pointless shit.
Like he did that for again, around around Jaka's story. In fact, it was right after Jaka's story.
The death of this fictionalized Oscar Wilde. It was really well done. It just had nothing to do with Cerebus, the character.
It was also not just the fictionalized Oscar Wilde, but it turned out it was like the letters from the friends of the real friends of the real Oscar Wilde. He was just changing some of the names, it turns out.
Yeah, Sim did a massive amount of research.
I think he just loved Oscar Wilde too, especially at that time. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, this really cool thing I just discovered. I'm going to shoehorn it into my comic.
Yeah, and because he has no editor, no one told him to cut that shit out or make it a side comic or something.
It's actually a great object lesson in the upsides and the downsides of having no one to tell you no. Because you can see the worst part of it is right there.
You need to be your own editor.
Yeah.
You need to be capable of understanding the concept yourself.
Which is also the hardest job ever, not just like copy editing, proofing, spell checking, all that shit, but learning when you should cut away and skip parts of your story. Maybe your favorite part of your story, but it has to be some part of the story, usually, to make it better to read. They say in movies, a director always has to cut his favorite scene, but he always has to. Not that He doesn't want to, of course, but it's necessary because
I was actually also going to bring up when you brought up
it makes the pacing better.
The thing about Steve Ditko, where some fan is showing up and asking him about, like, oh, what do you think about Spider-Man now? And it's like, Spider-Man's not my property. Why are you asking me about Spider-Man still?
I think, yeah, there was a fan, a superhero comics fan, who sent a drawing of Spider-Man from, like, the more recent, like, the 90s era or some shit, sent it to Steve Ditko, being like, can I get an autograph on this? And Steve was like, that's not my art. It's not my character anymore. So no, I don't believe in this shit. The way that people believe in Spider-Man, I don't believe in Spider-Man anymore. And the guy actually had a correspondence back and forth with Steve Ditko and then published it all into a book. And it's like, that is one of the most perfect superhero comic fan behaviors in history, I think.
Have you seen a picture of someone handing John Romero a copy of Doom 3 and asking him to sign it? And he signs it, I didn't make this.
Yeah, rightfully so. It's weird how people look at Doom 3 like an underappreciated gem when it is the worst game in the series.
It's the worst Doom game, and I don't even really care that much about the Doom series. I actually don't really like... I was playing Blood Refreshed Supply. I own it because, like, hey, Monolith made this. A lot of people love the game. And, I played, like, 15 minutes. Like, these are really nice maps. This is really cool stuff. The scenery is really cool. There's a lot of dialogue from the main character. It's a bunch of fucking catchphrases,
Classic boomer shooter stuff, yeah.
But my favorite boomer shooter of all time still remains GoldenEye 64.
Yeah, of course.
It's the only one that I count as my favorite as a boomer shooter.
And I don't count Half-Life as a boomer shooter. Half-Life is not a boomer shooter.
Half-Life was the watershed moment.
Yes.
It was the gateway. It was the gateway that got us into PC gaming. Before that, it was just Nintendo. It was Nintendo all the time.
The squeegeeing of the third fucking eye of video games.
Yes, and after that, I got a PlayStation.
Yeah.
I think did I buy PlayStation before or after Half-Life came out? Because it was after Final Fantasy VII had been out.
Very close to the time. It was 90, because 98 was when all that shit happened.
It's weird. All in 1 year, just like Half-Life came out, the PlayStation 1 and Final Fantasy VII.
That reminds me of Cerebus, is that Cerebus was still going, like, it started in the 70s and it was still going at that time. And it was very good. I think it ended, 2003?
2004,
yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, very bizarre time. And, of course, a very bizarre ending, as I had skipped ahead. I don't really know what's happening, aside from Cerebus actually dies.
Yeah. The frickin' Cerebus wiki spoils the final page.
Probably out of bitterness. They're probably like, that's bullshit.
Yes. What did you see this shit? What the hell were they thinking?
What they were thinking.
Well, it's kind of what Dave Sim was thinking.
Yeah,
after he had his mental breakdown in the 70s, he announced that he'd have this 300-page comic where the main character would die in the end. So that was never a secret.
He had actually been calling. I saw one of the notes from the president in, like, the 80s, where he said this comic will end at issue 300. And it's like, he knew that already? Shit, man, that's kind of impressive.
I think he was just announcing that it would have to end by 300.
Yeah, because he did kind of end it at 200.
You liked it or not.
He could have ended it at 200. That would have been because it tells a very complete story at the end of 200. Although
Doesn't it continue? Didn't he continue the book after? Not after 300, but he did, like, some spin-off or something.
Other spin-offs, Cerebus and Hell. I think that he had done spin-offs even before that point of Cerebus, though. But then he also did...
I've not seen any of those.
He did Glamour Puss.
Check the wiki for more information.
Yeah.
He even did a Holocaust comic called Juden Hass.
Fucking lol. Lol? I mean, oh, wait, no, probably not. Speaking of his religion, though, the sort of... There's a lot of shades of Islam in there, even, like, long before 9/11, of course, because it was through the 80s. Although the 80s had a lot of the plane hijackings and shit. There was a lot of Muslim terrorism then.
You know, that's the thing is the Weather Underground 70s leftist terrorist groups from back then. It's it is weird how that just got memory hold. No one ever talks about it. I don't fucking even think about it anymore.
In a way, that's just decentralized now. That fucking broad who got shot by ICE, clearly she would have been like the Weather Underground.
If you see those fucking pictures of her like at protests and shit, she looks like the stereotype of a loony leftist.
Yeah, if she was alive in the 60s or 70s, she would have been bombing the heckin' fascerinos along with the other subhumans at the Weather Underground.
Yeah.
And the fucking fascists, aka completely ordinary normal people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the worst fascism
normal straight white males
was Nixon taking America off the gold standard, which isn't really fascism. It's almost like the opposite of fascism. It's a shame.
I wish it was fascism. Or rather, I wish he was fascist.
Yes. Like Trunk. Donald Trunk.
President Trunk.
Every time they're like, fascist, he's deporting everyone. And it's like, he's not even close.
Not even close. I wish. Don't do that. Don't give me hope.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the fantasy of Trump's jackboot thugs mag dumping fully automatic black assault rifles into peaceful protesters. Inshallah, extra big ass time now with more molecules.
Inshallah, maybe even mashallah is the past tense. It has happened.
Later in the 90s, when Sim formed his own religion, he incorporated parts of Gnosticism, Judaism, Islam. He even calls himself a Muslim sometimes in the letter sections.
Yeah, the way
totally
later
Muslim.
ones. Yeah,
he's totally fucking...
It's kind of the natural end result, too, for his stuff, because it's like, this guy needs to be a cult leader. At least a little bit needs to be a cult leader. Kind of reminds me, of course, of Philip K. Dick, which that episode will have gone up by the time this one does. Yay!
Yeah, but Dave Sim has a low charisma score, so he could never attract any followers, despite his brilliant comic.
I watched some of his YouTube videos.
Yeah, I was subscribed to his YouTube channel, too.
And honestly, it's fucking he's kind of dull.
Yeah, it's a basic bitch conservative opinions.
His
YouTube page sucks.
Well, he's fallen apart. Like some of the pictures of him from the 80s and 90s, you know, he's kind of a handsome guy, I guess you could say, like as Captain Picard would call a woman, perhaps. But like you look at him,
you call old lady.
Yes, you look at him on his YouTube channel, and it looks like he's like imploded. And he looks like he drank from the wrong grail, except for the fact that he would have to be very old now. But like he can't draw.
Yeah, he's got to be pushing 70.
Yeah, he's got an arm brace on because he's fucking just falling apart.
I guess he gave himself permanent carpal tunnel.
Yeah, just...
Well, drawing for 80 hours a week for decade after decade will do that.
Yeah.
He was born in 50s. He was born in 1956. So
I love my craft. I would never work that hard at it, though. I love being a writer. I'm not going to fucking work 80 hours a week.
That's why his art was so freaking amazing. It belongs in museums.
Yeah.
And it kept getting better as his brain deteriorated.
And that's the sad truth about artists, the ink cells, the Sharpie harpies, is that they basically have to draw that much. You have to essentially break yourself into pieces over your life just to have any career in art.
And now it's fucking all AI. AI is about to take up. I don't want AI to steal art from artists. I want them to at least volunteer and then get paid for it. But
it's early
too late
to say.
now.
It's early to say, but I really don't think AR is actually going to take over for real art. It's going to take over for placeholder art, for fucking for throwaway art, for like even the better it gets, you still can't control it the way you need to when you're making it yourself. It's just taking other pieces of like poses and arms and compiling them It can't like actually control the shit the way that you kind of need to with a. They're never going to get rid of real artists when it comes to the most important necessities of design.
Yeah, I would say not yet anyway. Especially the way code is being G'd up nowadays. You're not going to get AI doing anything all that sophisticated or amazing for a long time.
Yeah,
I do wish it was easier for artists, including musicians, to make a living off of their art, but
yeah,
that's not going to happen until
going
the cost
back
of
AI.
living.
Yeah,
not until the cost of living goes down.
But also at the same time, that's
the
something
music
Dave Sim
business
talked about
itself.
for decades. Dave Sim would talk about how the companies owed their creators and especially the artists a lot more money, and they would never deliver because they would just the companies would hold the rights or buy them out, from under the creators, and the creators just died broke and poor, or the same thing. But that was one of the earliest things Daveson would always talk about, and a lot of other creators would always talk about. And every time anyone would ask him, like, oh, what about Superman? The important things that Superman.
Cerebus 108, note from the president. I've been dreading this. Since around June of last year, I've been thinking, someone's going to write to me and ask me to jot down some thoughts on Superman for his 50th anniversary. But then I would think, no one would really be that stupid. In the case of Amazing Heroes, it would appear my judgment was a tad hasty. Dear artist/fan, I swear I didn't notice this my first time through. What a wonderful salutation. Let's circle artist and move on, shall we? On February 29th, 1988, one of the greatest symbols of American imagination celebrates his 50th birthday. Superman, hero and ideal. Man, right on, I'm thinking. I have a number of early action comics, The Nonstop Movement, punchy one and two-word word balloons, 9 panels to the page. Superman gives the corrupt union boss one up alongside his head. Superman clears the little guy of trumped-up charges. Superman traps a corrupt capitalist in one of his shoddy buildings and scares shit out of him, saving him only at the last possible second. Who, from the humblest beginnings, has become one of the world's best-known characters. And I'm going like, what is this shit? Humble. Superman didn't have any humble beginnings. Superman ate fire and shit ice from the get-go. Superman was bigger than anything before or since. Comic strips are just newspaper ghetto features like the horoscope or weather report. Superman kicked his way onto newsstands and made the whole world notice. Humble beginnings. Asshole Californian probably means Cleveland or some shit. In tribute. I swear I'm not making this up. You know those science fiction movies where the robot suddenly gets a hitch in his get-along, and for a second the tape loops inside and a word comes out funny, and that's when you cop to the fact that you're dealing with a robot and not a human being. I rest my case. Amazing Heroes, the award-winning national magazine of the comics medium. In case this has somehow slipped any of our artist/fan minds, we'll devote an entire issue to the Man of Steel. This is a tribute on par with being included in the Reader's Digest sweepstakes mailing. I mean, come on. They publish 105 of these stupid things a year, and I know I promised myself I'd never get into this because Amazing Heroes does help finance a lot of worthwhile Fantagraphics stuff, and every one of them the content is zero, zip, nada, empty, click, nil. I flip through the things when they come in, I put them down, I see them a while later, and I say, I haven't looked through that yet, have I? And I pick it up and look through it, and I think, oh Lord, I did look through it. And I drift off and I'm through it and I don't remember what I saw the second time. We'd be honored if you would join us. You are too kind to all us artists/fans. If you would take a moment to put down your feelings on Superman, what he means to you, to children, to the world. Superman, as originally conceived, as a force for the common man, as an answer to the mindless tyranny with which his name, as a term, has come to be identified, as a foe of corruption and injustice, as the embodiment of FDR-style liberalism and the epitome of the notion that one individual can, should, and must, of necessity, make a difference. In all this, Superman, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's Superman, the only true Superman, stands as a beacon of freedom shining as brightly for an adult who holds the ideals of the characters sacred as he does for a child seeing him and learning them for the first time. As a symbol of the nearly limitless power of imagination, he has inspired creators for 5 decades to take up pen and brush in pursuit of excellence, to weave our tapestry once more. To aspire that one day we might know 1/10, 100th of the greatness implied in knowing you are Jerry Siegel. You are Joe Shuster, you are the creators of Superman, and that no monumental and tragic injustice can strip you of that mantle. As comic book creators, this is our greatest heritage and our greatest debt. If you would grace us with a drawing of any kind, we would be overwhelmed. How about if I just take your word for it and save myself the drawing time? We can pay but a minimum amount, and gladly any postage, but a moment frozen in time. Hard to believe it possible in a letter a mere half-page in length, but true for all of that. Think of all the delights the character has given you and others. There is really altogether too much of this going on, but I had come to the point where I hoped everyone was having the common decency not to infect my mailbox with it. Sure, I'll do a picture of Superman and get Gerhard to put the Fortress of Solitude behind him. We'll make money, and we can send it to Kevin Dooley, and he can print it and he can make money. Then we'll send copies to the distributors, right, Kev? And they can make money. Then we'll get the distributors to send them to the shops and they can make money. And the B666 Fifth Avenue gets free advertising for whatever the latest crop of Jerry Siegel ghostwriters and Joe Shuster ghost artists are churning out. Kevin, if I thought seriously of all the delight I've gotten from the original Superman, the real Superman, I would probably go mad from the injustice that has been done to Siegel and Shuster all of their lives. The millions that would be theirs today had they been dealing with honorable people instead of scum who aren't fit to breathe the same air as them. That any creative person would be a party to praising an injustice compounded year upon year, decade upon decade, is an example of vile hypocrisy and insidious and destructive self-loathing on the part of comic book creators. I thank you. Superman thanks you. Clark thanks you. Render unto me a fucking break, Dooley. Dave Sim, March 1988.
Don't you know how much Superman matters to people?
Yeah, and he would have the correct response, which was that they are Superman is a corporate property that is basically dedicated to withholding the rightful money from the creators and their families now. And they only sort of stopped doing that a little bit. The company stopped doing that a little bit
90
after
years after the fact.
Well, it was after gigantic public relations nightmares, just one after the other. And of course, it also led to Image Comics, which then became its own scandal because Image was supposed to be about creators' rights, and then creators would come and make a character. To be honest, that is such a fucking mess. It was really kind of a terrible idea, Neil Gaiman making some side character for Spawn, and then him having to have the rights to that forever after she's in one fucking issue. And it's like, shit, man. At some point, if I was the company, I would be like, can you just write away your fucking rights to that so we don't have to pay you every single time she's in a printing universe, or another issue?
Every all potential multiverses until the end of the universe.
It's why Tom Paris was a different character, because they didn't want to have to pay that one writer for that one TNG episode for every single episode of Star Trek Voyager.
That's why Todd McFarlane, when he was making Spawn, he just took Venom, erased the mouth, and gave him a cape.
Yeah. Genius. I mean, to be honest, that's all you have to do to make your... And that's what Marvel and DC were doing all the time. Like, Darkseid is just Thanos, and fucking...
Captain America is just fucking Miss Marvel.
And there was Hulk and fucking Doomsday.
Yeah, comic book artists will copy or at least take inspiration from other characters all the time, and I'm fine with that as long as they do something interesting with it. Like Rumiko Takahashi recycled her character designs from Lum to Ranma to Inuyasha, but people put up with it because they like her stuff.
Yeah,
including me.
that works, especially if it's your own. And when it's manga, of course, you more own, or the creators own at least more. Like they make more money off of their creation.
It's the way the system should work. For some reason, the Japanese, they're more legitimate with fucking like creators' rights and freedom when it comes to manga and the idea of creation in general.
It is also a little more cutthroat and backbreaking because it's like you're up against editorial forever. It's like you better keep selling. I mean, there probably is a threshold where your sales could drop off if you were a huge hit for a bunch of years. They'll be like, okay, we'll publish your comic forever now, I guess, until you die. But like, I don't think they would ever cancel Bleach for bad sales, but it's
not at this point anyway.
But before that point, before like issue 10 or volume or whatever the fuck, before chapter 10, 20, 30, before you got like 5 really good selling volumes out, the editorial might just be like, well, you're not selling enough, bye. And that's, that's mango for you.
That's the way Jim Shooter ran Marvel too, back in the day before they went bankrupt.
I would say he was more justified in doing that too. Like a lot of people hate him too, but to be honest, I think he certainly had some right ideas with some shit.
I can't say he was wrong.
Yeah. I also don't know everything about him either. Like I'm sure there are huge negative things about him that are not coming to mind. Anyways, I figure we've been going for an hour and a half. What I figured I would do is go through my notes file and just read through that. So at the very beginning, I say the comic book that Matata will never review. Hopefully I get proven wrong, because it would be cool to see him and the company that secretly bankrolls his videos actually do a video about Cerebus. He did a video about Bone last year. He does a lot of videos about indie comics and that kind of stuff, including the mangoes, which is cool. I don't know if anyone else has. It's Matt with like 3 T's, and that's just his name on YouTube.
Okay, let me look it up.
Yeah, he does pretty much almost exclusively videos about comics, some indie comics.
We've watched a bunch of people who have done kind of Linkara. Linkara was like the first.
Yeah, I've seen videos by this guy. His one about how manga broke the U.S. comic industry is great.
I actually haven't listened to that one yet, but all of the others, including especially the one about Mobius, because that is a very interesting, involved story, including almost like failing upward. I think everyone who is involved in the Jodorowsky's Dune, basically, they didn't fail, of course. But if they were to be considered failed, it would be upward, because all of them went on to really good stuff. Including like the movie Alien came from there, because Giger and Dan O'Bannon, I think, sort of teamed up, and Mobius and Dan O'Bannon, and then Mobius and Jodorowsky also, when he made the Black Ink Owl and that kind of shit, which was a fantastic comic, I thought.
Mobius is okay for a fucking frog.
Yeah, he's very froggy.
You have to apologize for him being French first.
Yeah, pardon my French.
Pardon all French.
I really love his art, though. I was definitely...
Oh, the man was a genius.
Yeah. Of really revolutionary stuff. The same way that Dave Sim should be considered. Dave Sim gets a really short fucking end of the stick when it comes to his art being underappreciated.
Yeah, Sim would be praised as a hero in the mainstream today if he just didn't talk about the female emotional void.
Yes. That is unironically the exact thing.
He would have gotten away with everything else he thought, said, and did, except for that.
Yeah. Anything else would have been.
Criticism of women is just not tolerated.
Well, especially, it's not just that. People were like telling, you're misogynist. Before that, really, because he would have female characters who had flaws, which proves that the left does not want that. the feminists, the leftists, the shit libs, the whatever, the wokanati, whatever the fuck anyone is going to rebrand them as at any
The
point.
Marxist, feminist, homosexualist axis.
Yes.
Which is what he calls it in his delightful essay, Tangent.
Very correctly, too. But the thing is, when they say, we want better female characters, strong, better, more in-depth, whatever, they don't
better writing. We just care about the writing.
Whatever
they say.
They proved they didn't want that because they got that in Cerebus and hated it. Because Cerebus has really interesting and good, not just well written, but like morally good, morally correct female characters in it that are written with flaws. It's the Galbrush syndrome, as we've also done a video on that. Very good comment, very accurate and apt. It was a YouTube comment talking about how you can't make a female version of Guybrush Threepwood because it would be inherently seen as misogynist. And the proof of that, and probably the basis for that guy's comment, was either Cerebus or at least the thought of it or something like it. Because Cerebus has the kind of Galbrush thing, and as characters, and they a couple of them are pure villains, pure evil. A couple of them are complete morons. A couple of them are a little simple but good people. Maybe like one, like Astoria, maybe is a bit of a megalomaniac, but at the same time, not necessarily evil.
She is legitimately a complex character, and it's one of the interesting. That's the thing.
Yes,
like fucking Groucho Marx shows up, and it's like, I could have predicted every single line, every word of the dialogue here. But when it comes to Astoria, it's like, oh, this is actually interesting. This is a unique character. I've not seen this in any fiction.
She's a manipulative bitch, but she's so good at it, and you can understand her motivations. She's an excellently written female character.
Even if it was for a bad ends, but to be honest, she's an idealist too, and not to a bad
She is
result.
Still wrong. I'm basically, as far as I can tell, she just kind of wants power for power's sake. We never really find out her exact desire, except that she wants to create the feminist superstate or whatever.
She creates her own religion. It's just in the big giant text blocks that we skipped. But,
the Kevilism.
Yeah.
It's a type of feminism that's closer to Marxism as opposed to the Cyranists and their matriarchy.
I assumed it was supposed to be like a reference to Calvinists or something.
It just sounds similar, but it's interesting because all the details are there, but also if you skip them, you can still read the story. And at the end, she does basically realize that either she got what she wanted and it was wrong, or she could never get what she wanted and it was wrong. And so she
could never get what she wants because she's female, and the female void.
Her female void, it failed to devour the male light. And
what would have made her happy is being a good wife and mother, which is what makes all women happy.
Which is also good.
That idea makes them incredibly angry.
Yes, but at the same time, she has a lot of complexity and a lot of thoughts. She has a lot of agency. In fact, she almost has the most agency of any character in the entire story.
She has agency over Cerebus.
Yeah, Cerebus has almost no agency because he's kind of all instinct. And that is basically his downfall. Even, by chapter 200, it's very much established. Before the end of the whole comic, it's said to him that he's prophesized that he'll die alone and unloved. And that kind of gets to him, but not to the point where he's really ever going to do anything about
the
it.
idea bothers him, but he doesn't seem to understand how he's supposed to get out from underneath that.
And usually in like a stupid story, that would be like, well, Cerebus is still the hero, so he's the good guy anyway, so you have to like that he does this stupid shit. But the story is aware that Cerebus is not good. You're not supposed to necessarily even like him.
He's not the hero. He's the protagonist, but he's not the hero.
Exactly.
Yeah, even in the early chapters, he kills people just because they irritate him.
Yeah.
Like, he was never a good guy. He's just like you said, an anti-villain.
Yeah. And one of the only examples I can even think of, because Guts is an anti-hero, of course. The Punisher is an anti-hero. Wolverine, that kind of shit. But an anti-villain, basically the flip of the anti-hero, where Cerebus is not a villain, but he is certainly not any kind of hero. He's not a good person.
I'm sure that shitlib website TV Tropes has a bunch of examples.
It should. It certainly should.
I'm sure it should.
If they understood.
If I bothered to ever check, I might find that out.
Won't happen.
They got overrun with trannies a decade ago. Yeah. I hate that site.
I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they have no clue.
I can't remember the last time I was there. It was when Tumblr was, when we had our Tumblr. That was the last time I was ever even
People would reference it, and it was probably usually mostly, Essay Mod, who was the guy who...
Retard gay shit. Oh, Essay Mod.
Yeah, not to be mistaken for Edit Mod, who is actually fun. He did he actually drew comics himself, too. He did stuff making fun of Kate Leth way early in the day, and also did some of the Nazi Fest edits. But that was Edit Mod. Essay Mod was the guy who read Homestuck. Homo Suck.
And he was also, he turned into a giant shitlib. It turned out he was a shitlib.
Yes.
Yeah, now you don't need to make edits to turn Sinfest into a Nazi comic.
And also, you don't need edits to make Sinfest interesting or good, because it's shocking.
This is the first time in 25 years it's been interesting.
I know, yes. it's
even
truly
at its
amazing.
Inception, it was only interesting just because it was like, this is the most low effort. Why is he a wigger? And he's also Japanese.
It was like a ripoff of Calvin and Hobbes, but Hobbes was a girl, a fucking scene girl or whatever, and it was a daily release. That was the appeal of Sinfest. That was the only appeal of Sinfest.
Yeah, I remember I had an internet friend around 2002 who showed me Sinfest. Mm-hmm. He said, "Look, it's like Calvin and Hobbes, but it's anti-Christian. It's edgy."
Yeah.
Like, really, nigga?
So edgy. That's the thing. It wasn't even edgy in an interesting way. It was edgy in the blandest, like, safest way. Safe for early 2000s internet. How fucking gay and boring do you have to be safe for 2002 internet?
So, whoa, George Bush is bad. Stop the presses.
Yeah. He went, look out, this guy goes there. He watches The Daily Show.
He watches The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. He didn't watch it until after Craig Kilborn was fired from The Daily Show for misogyny.
Yeah. You know what? Daily Show with Craig Kilborn, the same time that Strangers with Candy was on Comedy Central. It goes to show Comedy Central used to have actual good stuff, and it
Tough
ended
Crowd was the last
very
cast.
Yeah. Tough Crowd was the last
Tough Crowd
good thing.
Was getting huge numbers, and then they canceled it anyway because it wasn't leftist enough.
It was on right after The Daily Show, and a lot of people, not just viewers, but a lot of people didn't like it, specifically its politics. And it wasn't even overtly right-wing. It was just...
No, it was centrist.
It was
leftist
centrist enough.
Which was too much.
Yeah, it was not leftist enough.
Look beyond the left wing and right wing, except
exactly.
Bogdanov.
Yeah, the mere left and right. The ascended centrist is the ultimate thing.
Ascended radical centrism. Speaking of radical centrism, the notes again. Let's see, the notes just say short chat about beginning with swords and sorcery adventures. We cover that. The comic was, and always will be, partially parody of pop culture comic books.
Actually, what was the thing about the Tough Crowd? I was trying to think who was the fucking... It was like some guitar player, the I Don't Want to Work guy.
Yeah.
Fucking was like, the Tough Crowd is...
Todd Rundgren?
Todd Rundgren, yeah.
That guy. I forgot his name because he so doesn't matter.
He played on that Meatloaf album we listened to on Shitposter recently.
Bad Out of Hell, which is a classic album, of course. He was probably like 20 at the time.
I had no idea he was on it. All I remember is, like, in the comments section, it was a bunch of his simps in, like... It was an 8,000
No, what it was Jim
YouTube
Norton
video.
Jim Norton met him, and Todd Rundgren told Jim Norton that he hated Tough Crowd because it was too conservative. That's what happened.
Yeah, and his simps came out in full defense of him on some fucking ONA YouTube video.
Pancake Defense Force.
Yeah, being absolutely Pancake Defense Squad.
The pancake
fucking
bags.
all they talk about is pancakes. All you ever do.
Why are all of your threads like this? Anyways, but yeah, that was Tough Crowd. But anyways, notes saying originally I bought old issues in the bargain bin, which were around issue 200. The acid couch trip in space where Cerebus just floats around on a rock. One thing that is interesting about that is Dave the God comes to talk to Cerebus, but the thing is, Dave the God can't even talk to Sirin, or the person who became Sirin, the other aardvark Muslim woman who's just
ultra feminist.
Yeah, she's constantly. He basically sticks her around Jupiter permanently, where she's just screaming "lies, it's all lies," just in hysterics, like she's actual feminist.
She's completely unable to have a rational conversation.
Yeah, even Cerebus comes to a tiny bit more of a spark of awareness. Also, I have to say that the little bar he moves into after that is like one of the most comfy looking places. Dave Sim and probably Gerhardt too absolutely had a mastery of just like these comfy looking locales and like old
the scenery. They're able to do backgrounds.
Yeah, European
in the way that you're supposed to.
Architecture of like regular, like a normal housing district with just, wooden houses with just regular windows and shit.
Yeah, in the letter section, Sim explains that he did go to a bar quite a lot, all through the 70s through the 90s, and he did draw caricatures of people he saw, and sometimes included them as characters in Cerebus.
That would be awesome to be in Cerebus.
He's probably drunk a lot. That's another thing. Schizophrenics probably shouldn't do a lot of either, is a whole bunch of heavy drinking.
Yes, and they do.
When his brain's already broken.
Yeah, apparently that's something that schizophrenics just do a lot anyways. A lot of them are drug addicts in one way or another, and never the drugs that they actually need, which I don't know what that is, and I kind of don't care as long as I'm not one.
The kind of antipsychotics you give to a troon.
Or the kind of antipsychotics that you give to a mother with breast cancer, but it's in her leg. That was fucking...
Oh.
That's so insane. That's the kind of insanity that I love. A good comparison. Isn't
that the one where he gets a syringe and pulls out milk and squirts it into the daughter's mouth because she's so annoying?
The leg breast milk episode. It's just great.
Was that already played, or is that coming up?
Yes, it was. That was season 4. It was the Christmas episode, in fact.
So I'm looking through these notes you wrote about the first 2 volumes of Cerebus. You have quite a lot of insights into it.
Where's the early notes about that? Well, here, let me, I guess, read more of this. Here, it says originally, I bought it in the bargain bin, Acid Trip, floats around on a rock. We talked about that. Cerebus issue 26 is the first issue of the High Society arc, and it's peak Cerebus. I said that at the time. To be honest, this ending of 200 was an incredible conclusion to like everything that had happened up to that point in the comic. Even with the acid trip shit, but it really concluded the story and shit. So, but here's the thing: they always recommend, if you're going to start Cerebus, they recommend the beginning of High Society, which is issue 26. I would actually recommend starting at issue 1 because it's still fun to read. I was surprised, but
the early fantasy stories are still top notch.
Yeah, they're good fantasy stories because they have a little bit of humor without being too bizarre, without clogging up the story. They have an adventure. All of them have kind of a twist, but let me read the rest of this, though.
Yeah, I did like High Society so much I gave a copy to an English professor. This was like 2010.
That would be fitting, too, because it's the kind of English professor story where
he liked it.
Yeah, exactly. That's not even surprising either. Here, though, High Society being peak Cerebus, it's frequently recommended as the ideal starting place for anyone who wants to read. And initially, where I mentioned that, I bought it on Comixology. and later, for recording this episode, like that was the intent, is that you would mention how much you like Cerebus, and it's like, you know what, let's do one of the final Shitty Webcomics Weeklies where I go and I read the entire comic from the beginning as much as I possibly can. And I've certainly read the majority of it, but
yeah, you've read the good parts.
yeah. And you know what, though, is interesting? I saw my brother reading like 250, and it was Cerebus and Jaka, and I just remember being like, this art is still really good. It's just really solid art.
Honestly, I don't know if I'd really recommend the whole. I definitely can't recommend the entire all 300 because I haven't even read all 300. But definitely read up to Jaka's story. The problem is, I still skimmed a whole lot of the entire book, or the whole series. There were big pieces.
The prose sections,
starting in High Society, where it was like. The fucking Groucho Marx doing his shtick. Yeah, he's very shticky.
That character's name is Lord Julius, and he was like the ruler of the country, and just through connections to him became all these happy accidents of why Cerebus was able to become like prime minister.
Yeah, so you have to read some of that.
Yeah, but it does
you can't skip it all.
Some of that drags.
At some point, yeah. A lot of it starts to really drag. Whenever it's like some parody cartoon character, it starts to drag, and I just started to glaze over. My eyes would just glaze over trying to read it.
Again, it would cycle, though, where it would do that for a few issues and then go back to really tight and, sparse dialogue, but that was to the point and, easier to read. There is an element of me just being so like Carl would say, I'm just so desensitized when it comes to reading these giant
bananas.
When it comes to reading those giant blocks of text, though, I'm like, is this really going to tell me something I can't learn by just reading after the actual comic parts?
I've read all the text parts multiple times, and I will tell you, they are not necessary.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was, because I would still skim them, and it's like this is just sort of window dressing stuff.
I think even Dave Sim kind of understands that, because there are several parts where it just like suddenly the text rambles off until it's too small to read.
Yeah, or it cuts off at the end of a page or like a mid-sentence or something. And there are also references in the comic where it's like the text part, that was being written by Oscar, the Oscar Wilde fill-in. And it's like, yeah, he does kind of go on, doesn't he? And there was acknowledgement that the prose parts were rambling, possibly by design.
Yeah, I assume some of that is by design, but also at the same time, it's like, I have to just kind of play it by ear, and eventually, if I start to get bored, it's like, well, there's 300 issues. I'm going to be here forever if I read all this.
Yeah, I needed to read as much as I could for this video, after all. So it's like, sometimes I'm going to just have to, because I knew if I just read the actual comic parts that are, a panel and word balloon, if I just paid attention to that, I'd probably get everything I needed to understand what was happening, at least as much as it could be understood, which...
Yeah, you haven't even gotten into the analysis of the Old Testament that he does.
Oh, boy.
In the pages of Cerebus.
I've
the actual Old Testament and has Cerebus comment on it.
I do plan to have... to read past. Now that I'm up to 200, I know I can finish this whole thing, but I will probably still end up skimming big chunks like that. Again, the prose sections.
Yeah, there's still amusing things that happen in the last 100 issues, but it's clear that his brain has turned into mush, and he's putting any crazy idea he could think of into the comic without any regard for coherency.
It was still, that's the thing, is at that point it kind of goes back and forth between being enjoyably readable and just being like, for me, the big problem is just big walls of text. The fact that he's not making a comic anymore, he's just writing a book at this point.
Yeah, again, it's the cycle, almost rapid cycling, except it's not rapid, of course. In fact, it's incredibly protracted. But the the cycle of it. Again, it's part of mental illness, and also probably he was like, okay, I want to end this at 300, but I really kind of have ended this already. I need to just start filling in anything just to get to 300. He does, at least 300 does have a conclusion. 300 ends Cerebus, certainly. But then he goes on to Glamour Puss, which was his other comic afterwards. I bought an issue of that, and it is very schizo.
It's just fashion drawings. He wanted to draw pretty women in dresses, which is fine.
Yeah, there's no story to it. There's also, what was it called? The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, I think, was some other comic. I think he did after Glamour Puss, and I didn't go to the comic stores enough to see it, but I have a feeling it just wasn't getting put on shelves.
It was. He was still making comics, though.
Yep. Also, the Holocaust comic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I've never heard of a lot of those. We saw Glamour Puss because we picked it up for $1 at the fucking dollar bin.
Yeah, and I was familiar with Dave Sim at that time too.
And I tried to read it, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, it's not really a comic to read. Anyways, so yeah, as far as the early issues, where I started at the beginning, I liked the first handful of issues, and I found them to be charming fantasy adventures. That was essentially some sort of indie version of Howard the Duck and Conan the Barbarian, where a cartoon animal with side mouth and everything was in a world he never created, full of stylized but realistic humans doing violent shit. The side mouth is especially telling because he usually has two side mouths, where it's so on his side that it's like at the same level as his eyeballs. It's like nuclear stylized. In fact, the more it goes on, the more stylized he looks, but the more human everyone else looks. And it's very intentional, but almost to just the point of insanity.
Yeah, honestly, it gets to the point where it's like, it seemed clear at first that he has a mouth. It's just...
And he must scream.
Yes, a lot.
He has a mouth, but then his mouth disappears.
Yeah, and it goes around. Like, his mouth never really opens underneath his snout.
When you see him drinking from a bottle, he sticks it on one of his two mouths on the side of his head.
Just he attaches it to the side of his head.
But in the meantime, it's also like, well, clearly it's drawn like that because it's cartoony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
was drawn like that because it's cartoony,
to meet
and
the
then
cartoony
after a while,
style.
It's drawn like that because it's on purpose.
Yeah.
He's intentionally making the side mouth.
It's
like if some weeaboo fucking fully leaned into the side mouth crazy skid.
Yes, snout face, Animu style, but
except literal snout here.
Yes, literal snout, literal side. It's more side mouth than even the most anime Dominic Deegan style.
He literally has a snout. I mean, he's an animal.
Yes, he's an aardvark, a cartoon, not just an aardvark, even though they establish him in the comic
aardvark.
As a cartoon aardvark. But he's one of the only 3 aardvarks in the universe.
And aardvarks are suddenly this weird mystery Hyperborean Ubermensch race instead of an animal. Instead of a cartoon animal.
It shows his parents at one point in memories, and they're regular humans. So I guess they thought their kid was a deformed freak.
Yeah, there seemed to be
that's the way it's treated. Yeah, even he was afraid of that.
Yeah, even the other aardvark, the evil feminist one, Siren, she wears the veil, and part of that is because of insecurity about the fact that she does not look like a human.
Was that animal that's from fucking? It's like Black Hops, and it's also in Common America.
The capybara.
Capybara. It's like if somebody made up a capybara as its own unique species, and then it became the Ubermensch or whatever the fuck.
Yes.
In fact, and it looks nothing like the actual animal. And it's like, why? What?
Apparently, they're ending Black Hops. Black Ops 7 is supposed to be the last one. And it's like, and man, if there was ever a Black Ops 8, it clearly should be about how the capybaras are the ascended species.
Secretly God or something.
And alcoholics, of course.
Schizophrenic alcoholics.
Yeah, so and just a big section of a badger is the name of the capybara in Common American. Just a big section where it's just floating in space, talking to God. Anyways,
Talking to God, who is fucking either Tim Lim or Mark Pellegrini.
Yeah, or both. It could be both. Why not both? Here from the notes, it says, because it's a lot of reading, I skipped all the extra content, all the letters pages, which isn't necessarily true. I would sometimes read the letters. Like, there's some interesting, curious shit in the letters pages. Although
I read a tiny amount of them because I figured after the fact I would fucking catch up on that.
I could only read so much, and it was interesting. After like issue 100, he just stops responding to anyone, basically, or maybe 150. I don't know, but he just stops responding to all of them because he's getting so many.
Yeah. Plus, he became more of a cantankerous dick over the years, and he
couldn't take the bans.
A lot of his friends.
I think that's also true of like fucking how was it Terry A. Davis? He couldn't take the bans.
Well, I mean,
it's a strong comparison between the two.
Yeah,
they're both geniuses,
both crazy, both geniuses.
Yeah,
both
and they
fucking
both
nuts.
They couldn't handle their fame.
Made incredible creations, though, of course. But
yes, and they'll be hopefully they'll be remembered forever.
Yes, certainly if it was up to us. But at the same time,
the CIA aardvarks, they glow in the dark. You just run them over.
Okay.
One day, Mom's minivans will call out to all true believers and say, "There's a CIA hiding behind me. Run them over." That is from the Book of Cerberus. Anyways, at the same time, he was probably seeing himself like losing subscriber, posting cringe, losing subscriber, as he would reply dickishly to some.
Yeah, he probably saw his sales figures in real time.
Yeah, and seeing his audience ask him, "Where do you get your ideas?" And just for the 50th time in a row, just not having a different answer.
Yeah,
his utterly mundane audience of mundane normie plebs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't his answer that everybody's brain produces ideas.
Yes. Yeah. He had a few. I think he acknowledged that a few times in the comic, so I thought that was funny, and it also interestingly predated the Norm Macdonald show by decades. So again, another interesting prophetic moment from Cerberus. He predated the word void. He didn't really ever say or invent that, but he said the female void. And what do you get when you abbreviate that? But he was really ahead of the curve when it came to, not that he was the first to criticize. In fact, there was The Manipulated Man, which was written by a woman from the 70s.
1971, I think.
I don't know if it was 71 or 78. It was either early or late 70s or something.
Yeah.
But it's actually a fantastic, like, self-misogynist book.
Yep.
It's very
1971.
That's a great book.
By Esther Vilar.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's from, like, Argentina.
Wow, 71. That is fucking wild. But also perfect timing. And it's just full of just making fun of women. It's just, she fantasizes about, like, a man stopping to help a woman change a flat tire, and in his mind just thinking women, just each one more useless than the next. And it's like, men don't think that way, but clearly this broad thinks that men should think that way. And it's like, holy cool. But yeah, that's a great book. And Dave Sims still really ahead of the curve. He's not a monster. He's just ahead of the curve when it came to the feminism question, the FQ. But anyways, yeah. So I mentioned I skipped the extra content, the letters pages, the intros, single pages of like text.
Yeah, which is fine. And sometimes he'd include a few pages of comics by other artists who wanted to give a hand.
There was a ton of that. It was really amazing, and I thought that's a great thing.
I was looking forward to the chance to go back to reading some of that stuff, but it's just I still haven't finished the book yet.
Again,
I haven't finished the series yet.
He had very early Jeff Smith and Scott McCloud stuff in there.
That's one of the things I was going to talk about. Is like sort of like how rappers will have fucking
some guy
such and such on their track
to come in and yell their name over it. It's a nice song. It would be a shame if someone yelled their name over it.
but it's like, that's kind of what you should be doing.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the smart,
nepotism.
correct move, is to favor people that you want to platform. You want to help platform people who haven't gotten their chance to seek that kind of fame. Maybe somebody who deserves it. Maybe somebody who's got talent.
Just like Tim and Mark did with us. It's
he straight up had like a few chapters of Elf Quest in the back of Cerberus.
I remember he added the Elf Quest characters, sort of parodies of them, in I think one issue. They just suddenly just drop by through a portal or something. And it's like, that's kind of cool that all these people, kind of the indie scene. It's sad though, because it was almost like a community, and I say that with the same tone as ass cancer. We've seen how communities work out, and if anything, they're only even worse now than they were then. But I do think it was a good thing for good people with actual principles. See, that was the difference, is that back then it was people with principles and actual, they believed in things. Nowadays, it's like a YouTuber who will just rape children and then talk about how moral they are, and then 500 other YouTubers will platform them and bring them on monetized streams for like 10 hours a day while they talk about how much they hate Star Wars, in between sessions of raping children and snorting cocaine. Which is,
trust no e-celeb.
Yeah, it's not even an exaggeration. It's just constantly happening, and everyone else is ignoring it. We're much like Dave Sim. We're very prophetic. We're way too ahead of the curve on this for a lot of people to catch up with. In like 5 years, you'll probably start seeing. You'll see Medicare still doing streams. He'll start doing streams. Well, he'll maybe hint about it. Kino Casino might start actually admitting that all of the people they were friends with are fucking guilty and complicit in this shit.
There's an idea. We could start our own celebrity gossip podcast, uncensored.
Yeah, and
I hate celebrities and celebrity gossip so much.
Yes.
It'll give us lots of material to talk about.
Yeah, just blind items all day, and sort of like the way we're constantly getting submissions to Shitty Webcomics.
Honestly, it would also kind of probably end up sounding like Patton Oswalt on Best Week Ever. And it's like, what do you think about the new fucking?
No, it's a Paris Hilton's coming out with a new fragrance, and then he would just be like, I hope she fucking dies of AIDS, and he wouldn't even have jokes about it, so they had to fire him because he couldn't even joke about celebrity gossip bullshit anymore, which is a little bit basted. But then again, he used to go around quoting right-wing people and shit, like fucking Jim Goad and stuff. It was clearly him who changed.
I've read a few Jim Goad books. I respect that guy, even though he was a faggot in his younger years. Literally, he experimented with gay shit.
He kind of admits that he was like one of the first wiggers and shit too.
That's true. He was interviewing rap musicians for magazines in the 80s.
He wanted to be down with them.
Then he was like, "Yeah, they're all stupid, though."
Yeah, but I think
eventually he was forced to admit that, they're all idiots.
He wanted to do some kind of confrontational interview with a white supremacist, and he goes like, "You're not really big on black people, are you?" And the guy goes, "No, not really." But I think the guy said like, but what is racism? Isn't pretty much everyone have some form of prejudice or bigotry about something?
Yeah, those fucking Eskimos.
They're the worst of all. The most. I mean, aren't black people the most racist?
Kiss normally.
They can't even kiss normally. Those motherfuckers. Anyways, one of the other cool things, the first thing Dave Sim wanted to do was spread the wealth and help other people's comics get seen. Including an early version of Bone.
Somebody did that today. I mean, imagine that. A modern day fucking comic indie movement.
It wasn't about bending the knee back then. It was about actual quality. Now it's only about bending the knee.
No one was required to worship at the altar of Dave Sim in order for Dave Sim to platform you.
Anyone, by the way, anyone who says it's not about bending the knee in any example of like a monetized YouTuber's comic, they're the ones who are molesting children and doing drugs. You
They're
can find them
bending the knee.
easily. You can detect them easily. The ones who are molesting children and doing drugs are the ones who are saying that it's not about bending the knee while they're monetized and only have like very specific same people on over and over again who seem to be under contract with a certain MCN, which they won't tell you what an MCN even is, but we will. Kino Casino will never tell you what an MCN is. No one on Kiwi Farms has the balls to ever admit what an MCN is. An MCN is a multi-channel network which is owned by a corporation and only hires and permits specific people either under contract or able to be controlled or corralled by that corporation. And they own hundreds and hundreds of YouTubers. And I don't mean the VTubers, because the VTubers at least admit it. But there are hundreds of YouTubers who are all about the culture war and anti-woke, or even the woke ones. But the anti-woke ones especially work for a corporation. And nobody else wants to admit this or tell you about it. We already have, though, a million times. So, you know us. We don't like to get sidetracked by all these extra topics.
Not us.
Yes.
No.
Not me. But because it's a lot of reading, I skipped the letters pages and so on. But yeah, Dave Sim was trying to actually help other people out that he saw as good creators with promise. Not just with promise, but they would then go on to have successful careers. So a lot of them, like even other ones, like Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore and so on, clearly they were all seeing it from each other. The 80s was a good era for this.
Yeah, and I don't think he's friends with any of them anymore except Todd McFarlane.
Which is interesting that would even subsist or exist.
It doesn't
continue.
surprise me that they're not friends with him, though, because, again, you're basically talking about a giant pack of retarded shitlibs. Fucking Alan Moore believes he's a magician.
Or optics cucks.
Yeah, they won't be invited to rich people parties anymore if they're friends with Dave Sim, the misogynist.
It's sort of like a
That's happened.
John Milius.
Yeah.
John Milius is like one of the greatest writers in Hollywood history, and he has no career.
Yeah, he can't. He basically can't. I mean, he's very old now.
Because he
and
made
had
Red Dawn.
Well, yeah, not just that,
Just
but
because-
people started
just
seeing
because
him
he's
as a
not a leftist.
Republican. He kind of came out as an actual conservative, and people were like, okay, well, and he's probably written a bunch of other shit. In fact, he wrote a video game or two, I think a couple.
Yeah, it was the Red Dawn video game, or not Red Dawn, Homefront.
Homefront specifically, which I still haven't played any of those because why would you play a video game for a story? It's the dumbest thing ever. It's just the stupidest thing ever.
Honestly, I think the one that I played was Homefront Revolution, which
was
he's
good.
credited with the concept, but he did not write the story or the script for it, I don't think.
I heard that was good though, and it has Coop built in.
Yeah, it is.
The whole game, which sounds cool.
It's a decent game. It's a decent, solid game, and then it also, like, as an Easter egg, it has like 2 or 3 missions from Time Splitters 2.
Oh yeah, I heard about that also.
Which I had never played until this, because we played Time Splitters 1.
Well, I mean, a first-person shooter on a console? What's wrong with you?
But this is this one actually has mouse aim, so it's like, oh, they could easily just port this and make it available for everyone, and they're just not.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, issue 26 of Cerebus is great because, the beginning of High Society. It's great because it has a lot of dynamics at play while also perfectly summarizing the main character, throwing him into a new situation where he's both completely out of his element. Cerebus is just again, he's with the top scum of the earth, the richest people, just all with them. So he's completely out of his element, but then at the same time, perfectly able to immediately manipulate the situation and the people to his immediate gain, just instantly getting rich.
Even in-universe people underestimate how smart Cerebus is, how quickly he can manipulate people into doing what he wants.
Because he comes off like a dumb slob right in front of them, but at the same time, well, the real thing is they think they're smarter than him when not a single one of them is. Like even Lord Julius is really, every time you see him, he's a complete fucking buffoon. He seems to have no clue what he should do. He always does like the most incorrect choice. He's like fucking, well, go count all the wallpaper in the entire country, when it's like, oh, sir, we're dying, we're running out of food. The fucking candles budget is 36,000 a day. He's like, well, okay, we're not cutting down on candles. Just that kind of it just buffoonery.
Which does take inspiration from the Marx Brothers movies.
Yeah. I do still highly recommend Duck Soup for anyone who hasn't. Duck Soup Duck Soup is almost as insane as later Cerebus too, because it's just fucking bonkers.
As a satire of how retarded politics is in general.
Yeah. But also has like cutaways to shit that's like I didn't know they could do in movies. Like there's those two,
the mirror scene
brothers. There's the mirror scene, but there's also like the scene where he shows off that tattoo like on his chest and stomach of like a stagecoach with horses, but then it suddenly comes to life and the dog barks. And it's like, what the fuck is it? It was a tattoo. What the hell is this? What am I looking at?
Yeah, movies were still a pretty new medium. That was like the 30s.
Again, they're experimenting, just like Dave Sim was experimenting. Breaking new ground. It broke new ground. But, Cerebus, in this beginning of high society, he comes into town with a giant reputation. He just has this reputation, his affiliation with Lord Julius, among a bunch of other things. So he just has a reputation for having so much money, even though he doesn't really. But he has this reputation.
He has a pack of loot he stole from the artist who died when the two monsters battled each other.
Just a pack of loot, and everyone thinks it's like an example of what he has when it's really everything he has. But
the comic misunderstandings are just freaking great.
It works perfectly, especially because again, all that kind of happens in just that first issue of High Society. But he's immediately being offered tons more money from rich strangers just to listen to pointless offers and pitches for things that he's not even really involved in, like wanting Cerebus to approve gold-plated lampposts in the city, which they're like, I'll give you, like $5,000 right now just to hear my pitch for that. And he can't do anything about it, but he's like, okay.
Free money.
Yeah.
I'll listen to this asshole for a few minutes.
Yeah, he'll take the money, but you got to throw in some free alcohol too. And they're like, oh, okay, absolutely, sure thing. Just fucking completely duped every fucking second. And then just followed by the next guy and the next guy doing the same thing, all trying to like outdo each other over how much money they can give Cerebus for nothing. So it gets to the point where he's so respected and fawned over that he can't even get into an honest or dishonest fight. He wants to beat somebody up, and like
the police appear and protect him.
Yeah, and then the guy he was gonna fight, who wanted to kick his ass, realizes who he is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, kid." Just offering him money, and Cerebus, being still, essentially a violent barbarian, is like just even that much more pissed off that he can't even get into a fight with anyone anymore. And as I was saying, I think this is supposed to reflect how Cerebus, the comic, was becoming so insanely popular, just taking off like a rocket ship. And Sim was just getting more and more offers from anyone who showed up. Probably getting offers from comic companies who wanted to own part of the comic, of course, most likely. And he makes the character Cerebus unappreciative of it, I think, as some kind of satirical reversal of Dave Sim's appreciation for his own success, at least. Although I am just guessing about that.
Yeah, that's something I never noticed in all of my readings of High Society. But you make a good point there. Because Dave Sim probably was a low-level millionaire by the 80s. And he had all sorts of people in the comics industry kissing his ass.
Yeah, it was the early 80s, too. So it was very early. It was like, because this is like issue 27, and he had hundreds to go, and already being popular and just being the toast of the town. Like, even after this, and even after sort of the downfall, he was constantly doing these big convention tours. In fact, that might have just been a mandatory thing for if you had a comic that even was a little bit popular, you had to do the convention tour and probably be a big star there. And of course, now that is even more taken over by the corpo rats, but still.
Yeah, Comic-Con is extremely corporatized, sanitized, and gay.
Yeah, the Comic-Con, probably even back then, but especially now, is really just an advertisement for the upcoming movies or TV show properties and that kind of shit. I'm sure some people can do some comics related stuff at Comic-Con, but that is the secondary purpose.
I've gone a couple of times, seen a few celebrities, saw the artist corner.
Yeah,
it's not entirely bad.
Yeah, I kind of always wanted to maybe go to a convention, but at the same time, never gone. And I might be old too, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. What do I want to do?
I'll go with you if you do. Let's talk after the recording.
Party time. Yeah, you know what? We'll be setting up things after this, but more of the notes here. Supposed to reflect his popularity. The weather, atmosphere. A lot of these, I mentioned this, of course, already, but around high society, but also before that, and also after that, have fantastic weather, atmosphere kind of art. The look of the weather is really fantastic. Snow or rain or wind. That kind of stuff. It's
incredible. And he had no assistance at that time, so he was doing everything on his own.
Yeah, even the stuff before Gerhardt, the stuff after it too, of course. But like for the comics of the time, like the early '80s, it was you just didn't really even see that. You would see mostly it would be simple indie art that was, straightforward. It would just have figures on a plain background sometimes establishing shots. But the big two who could do the big stuff wouldn't, because it was just kid stuff. That's all it was meant to be.
Frank Miller had his comic Ronin in the early 80s.
I think I did read that too.
It wasn't that great, but it was different enough from the usual cape shit that
visually,
it turned some heads at the time.
Yeah, because when I read it, I was like, this is kind of a meandering story that doesn't have a whole hell of a lot. Like his stuff in Sin City, I think is way better. Although, to be honest, like Daredevil Born Again, I think that is great, and Batman Year One is fantastic stuff.
We all here we're making fun of cape shit all the time, but once in a while there's a good one.
Well, Frank Miller was a standout even then. In fact, I think a lot of the cape cucks of the time hated the shit he was doing with Batman initially, of course.
I definitely appreciate him more. In fact, that's who I would say I'd rather read is fucking Frank Miller's work.
Yeah, to be honest, I think when it comes to actually reading and enjoying a long storied comic, I think Garth Ennis with Punisher Max, like 1 through 60, is one of my most favorite American comics.
Yeah, Punisher Max is fun.
Favorite superhero.
It's also almost like dark fantasy, except it's just not fantasy. It's very, very reminiscent of Berserk. As well.
Very grounded, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the time when a bad guy digs up Frank Castle's dead wife and kids, pisses on them,
their skeletons,
records it.
Dead.
That's like the second arc,
and they show it on the news.
Yeah, of course they show it on the news, because what else is the news for except antagonizing a sort of innocent man,
torturing the innocent
dead family? Yes.
I was actually going to also say that Cerebus kind of reminds me of Marlo Stanfield from The Wire. He's savvy, he knows his stuff, but like they start like the last episode, they were like trying to introduce him to the upper crust, and then he just leaves the party in his fucking tuxedo, and then stands on the street corner fucking wrests a gun out of a guy's hand. The fucking takes a bullet to his shoulder, and then he just stands there on watch because that's all he knows. That's all he wants to do.
I've never seen The Wire.
The Wire is really good. It's not exactly, kind of similar to Cerebus. It's not an easy watch necessarily, but
it's a police procedural, but you kind of have to be savvy with the genre.
It's a criminal procedure. To be honest, I watched it completely blind, and I watched the whole thing, and like by the end of it, it's like an incredible story of, it's the cops who are kind of pieces of shit, but they're ultimately, the good guys. But they're also too desperate to be the good guys a lot of the time.
They're trying to be the good guys.
Meanwhile, it is the most honest presentation of black crime that you'll probably ever see on television.
And also fucking big city corruption, left-wing city corruption.
Yes.
We could play it when you're done with House.
Yeah, because it's only 5 seasons. I would definitely not play more than 3 episodes a night. In fact, I think 2 episodes a night is almost pushing it because it's so dense sometimes. And sometimes it really drags. Like season 2 is a great season, but the beginning is so slow because it's just people who work at the docks. And it's like, we work at the docks.
They change gears. It's really weird. They change gears after that point.
The thing is, it does slow burn. That's what it's doing. It's building up and building up. And
I don't know if it would be really great for movie night because it involves a lot of attention.
I think we could do it, though. I think we could do it. When we run out of House episodes, we could do it.
Yeah, maybe play a few episodes, see if chat likes it.
Yeah, we could certainly give it a shot. Plus, we own the box set of the whole show, so if I torrent it, it's completely illegal.
Totally street legal.
Yes. But yeah, Marlowe from that is like, he's basically the guy who takes over the whole, Baltimore crime shit.
Yeah,
drug
he
dealing.
shows up in season 4.
Yeah, because seasons 1, 2, and 3 are Avon Barksdale, who's kind of the thug, but he's the gang leaders. The not even leader of a gang. It's just like he's the guy who runs the stuff, and along with Idris Elba, who plays Stringer Bell, who is like the smarty pants. He sort of pretentious. He thinks he's smarter than he is, but also at the same time, he actually is smarter than pretty much all the rest of the street N-words, N-was, perhaps.
He's an actual businessman. He's trying to treat it like a business.
Yeah, and he wants to act like he's legit, but he's also directly involved in all the drug dealing and
he's very
murders
street.
and shit.
It goes into detail. It explains it pretty effectively in the show when you watch it, but he's very street.
Yeah, he's still, but not as much as Avon Barksdale. But
he's taking business classes. He's getting his MBA from community college.
Yes. But then,
fuck you, Baltimore.
Challenge pissing. But the Avon Barksdale goes to jail in, I think, season 2, and Stringer Bell is murdered in season 3 by Omar, who is a great character. He's basically a guy who is outside of that whole system.
He rips off drug dealers as his job. That's basically what he does for a living. He's like technically homeless.
Yeah, he just robs the drug dealers. So Avon Barksdale and Stringer Bell fucking hate him and are constantly trying to have him killed. So ultimately, Stringer Bell is killed by Omar and brother.
Spoilers.
Brother Mazone,
Spoiler
who is
alert.
I don't know any of these characters.
Nation of Islam guy. It's funny seeing Omar, who's also a gay guy, teaming up with Nation of Islam guy who's just...
He's gay, so they constantly call him faggot cocksucker over and over again.
Was it? I think Omar said, we'll try going in the front way, and Brother Mazone's like, that's a change for you, just with his fucking bow tie and shit. But after that, like season 4, Marlowe shows up, and Marlowe is like the stereotype of the insane. When you see a Japanese meme of frightening black people from America getting shot on like police body cams, That's what Omar, or that's what Marlowe is.
Stanfield.
He's basically a fucking psycho, and yeah, so he's comparing him to Cerebus, or comparing Cerebus to him, is not totally fair.
He's not also a self-destructive fuck-up who tragically ruins his life through his own faggotry.
Yeah, again,
yeah,
kind of, because like as you were mentioning, like he was at some fancy, the way Stringer Bell would have been at some fancy place in a tux. Marlowe was at one and was like, no, fuck this, and just wants to immediately go out and fucking murder someone.
It's like the last episode.
Yeah, also though,
it's the final episode of the series.
You know, people say that the last season of The Wire is bad, but I actually really love the fact that it's like the gangs, the black drug dealing gangs, are killing so many people that they're just like killing them, and like one of them bought a nail gun so they can board up the abandoned buildings where they just stuff bodies.
There's abandoned apartment buildings just fucking everywhere.
Yeah. And so the police are like,
because the city is just so run down. It's so corrupt and it's just so useless.
One of the main cops, McNulty, is kind of crazy, but he's like, what if we just pretend it's a serial killer? And so they get like fake teeth and start putting bite marks on the dead bodies. The cops are doing this after the fucking drug gangs have killed the people. And they're faking a serial killer in Baltimore so they can get like FBI assistance to do something about it. And nobody, like all of the people who are like, oh, season 5 sucks, or The Wire's a great show, it's a very genius show. Nobody has ever said this before in history. But the fact is, the only reason why those killings were not considered serial killings is because black people did it.
Yes. It was that is one of the other things.
It was serial killing.
So violent. White people are all serial killers, and it's like black people kill more than any white serial killer, like any school shooting, anything.
It's 2 people working for the gang kill like 20 people over the course of several episodes, and it never gets considered being serial killing by the cops in the show, the FBI in the show, the people who like the show, the people who say the show dropped off in that season, or anyone. But it's completely true. It's still serial killing. It's just gang killing, so it doesn't get counted. And in the show, the FBI find out it's a hoax and completely dump it, and they're like,
yeah, the investigation just gets torpedoed.
Yeah, they almost, like several of the cops almost just get sent the fuck up for faking a serial killing. And
even though they're real killer, it's just the faked details about it to get more attention, so that he could get overtime, so that they could work off the clock, so that they could actually do the job.
Yeah, again, it's all the cops did was add bite marks to the victims.
Well, and a ribbon. They tied a ribbon around a few of them.
Oh yeah, like a little ribbon around the pinky
connected
or something.
them with the ribbon.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's a serial
Thomas, Ape, I'm out of time.
Yeah, okay. We should wrap this up now.
Well, you know, we did wrap up. Do you have a few more minutes? Was there something else I was gonna? Well, like, the parodies of Moon Knight, Wolverine. There's a character named Charles X. Claremont. That's clearly Professor X. There's all sorts of bizarre shit, and again, a lot of it kind of is filler, though. But it does add to the overall flavor. I would say this is and then 114 is the beginning of Jaka's story. Although there's a big up point like around chapter 90. So again, there is a cycle where it'll really drag and then pick way up, and then drag and pick up.
It's a testament to Dave Sim and his fucked up brain.
Yeah,
I love it.
So 114 is Jaka's story, and that is a big pickup. It's also like an enclosed story about one of the characters. Cerebus is in it too.
I have seen people on the internet say they picked up Jaka's story by itself without any knowledge of Cerebus, and they could not take this cartoon aardvark seriously.
Well, so and you're kind of not supposed to either.
Yeah, I think it's a bad starting point, even though it is the pinnacle of Sim's writing.
Yeah, you do have to really, I would just say, read from the beginning.
Simple. I mean, I skimmed a bunch of the stuff, and I still was able to understand almost everything.
Yeah, I
can't say everything because even if I read all of it, I wouldn't have understood all of it.
I would say start from 1 and read at least Jacka's story, which starts in 114 and ends around, I think,
138.
Yeah.
I just checked.
At the beginning of 122, he does mention breaking up with his girlfriend. Dave Sim, in the note from the president at the very beginning, says, like an empty page, it just says, I broke up with my girlfriend. And you can kind of tell it's like the era of the female void begins here. But
the female void begins to devour the male light. And we didn't barely get to talk about any of that.
No, and
we can talk about it more in the future because I'd love to continue this conversation. But I gotta go to work soon.
Yeah. I will throw in that video. I'm sure I have by now in this video of the little AI voice video reading just some of the page. The Dave Sim misogyny page itself has a full transcript of the essay.
Yeah, I've been taking notes this whole podcast, and I'll post them to Shitposter.
Yeah, for anyone who really if you want to escape the algorithm.
This is a high-level conversation.
If you want to escape the algorithmic Jew, you should be on at least the Fediverse.
If you want to fucking have high-level conversation, or if you want to just hear somebody who's capable of high-level conversations like ourselves.
Yeah, for your only hope for a future.
Yes, exactly.
Your only hope for a future.
We will wrap up there. So thank you again, Dayad. Dayad. Dad has one syllable.
Day, not Dayad.
Dad has one syllable.
Dayad.
Listen to my anime podcast.
Yeah, check out Dad's anime podcast.
Yeah, I've got that on, I got a bookmark of that, so it's like, someday I'm going to go and listen to a bunch of those.
It's on Odyssey. Yeah, but Odyssey is pretty good. Again.
Yeah.
Better than the Rumble.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have a backup of MP3s on Mega.
Right, yeah. Go ahead, everyone, check that out. Thank you again. Make sure to uncomment, don't share, resubscribe, unsubscribe. Make sure you're still unsubscribed. Don't hit like for don't notification.
Do the John Malin.
Yes.
Just hammering the button like a retard.
And Orange, you listened to Shitty Webcomics.
They should have listened.